welcome to what I'm sure will be the biggest disaster since the original Star Wars trilogy. My name is Ryan Higgins, and this is a very special episode of the Comic Conspiracy Podcast. This is the Star Wars Holiday Special, recorded live at Comics Conspiracy on whatever day this is, Friday, December 18th, 2015.
The official release date of Star Wars.
Also known as the official release date of Star Wars The Force Awakens, Episode 7. We have a wretched hive of scum and villainy here. We are at a wretched hive of scum and villainy. We are all scum and villainy ourselves, and we are here to talk about...
He still doesn't know what he's saying.
Star Wars scum. We're talking about scum and villainy here.
Did you just call me scum?
No, I called you villainy. We are here to talk about Star Wars. This isn't a comic book podcast. This is a Star Wars podcast. And we have not only some of our crew. I think Boba Fett came in and Carbon froze a handful of people and took them away before this episode recorded. However, we also have many special guest stars that will appear throughout the course of this episode. So please, we're going to start on the left as we always do. Go around the table and introduce yourself.
Brock Sager.
Chris Noyes.
Lane.
And Charlie.
Hello, everyone. Now, we do have 4 other people waiting in the wings that we are going to rotate in shortly after we do some stuff here. And then we're going to have like a big kind of multiple phases of people coming in and talking. It's going to be, like I said, a giant disaster, but it's going to be amazing because...
We're going to do our best to cross-cut the shit out of this bitch.
It's about Star Wars. We're here to talk about Star Wars. Whenever we have people on for the first time in this podcast, for the Comic Conspiracy Podcast, that is, we like to talk about our secret origin of comic books, how we got into comic books. We're not talking about comic books today. We're talking about Star Wars. So now we have to have our secret origin of Star Wars. And I did try to rope in some people we're not all exactly the same age and had the exact same experiences. We kind of spread it out a little bit different here, so I think we're going to have some unique opinions here of both not only the new movie, but also kind of how we got into this crazy space opera from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Brock,
What?
start us off. Star Wars.
Star Wars.
You have stories about your parents not letting you watch anything.
Yes.
Does this include Star Wars?
No.
You watch Star Wars.
My father took me to see Return of the Jedi. That was the first one I saw that I remember seeing.
Okay. And you remember, because we're the same age.
Yeah,
so.
I remember being in the theater because it was 1983. And I remember being in the theater and seeing Star Wars. I mean, or seeing Return of the Jedi, not comprehending it completely. But my dad did take me to see Return of the Jedi. And then I just remember watching Star Wars and Empire and Return of the Jedi on like Betamax recordings off of watching it on TV. So like when I watch the movie, I'm like, oh, yeah, they put a commercial there. They put a commercial there. They put a commercial there. So... yeah, that was pretty much my introduction. Return was my introduction to Star Wars, which made me really enjoy Ewoks because I was 4 years old.
Hell yeah, Ewoks.
Ewoks. So I also really enjoyed the 2 Ewok movies that came out. Yeah, those are awesome. Teak is amazing, motherfucker.
So as you do with comics, how did you progress with Star Wars? Did you follow it closely? Did you stick with it? Or did you kind of ignore it till the next movies came out? Or
I always enjoyed Star Wars. I didn't really have I had a couple of the action figures. I remember I had a Rancor, which I loved. I think I had a Millennium Falcon at one point, so I had a little bit, but again, my parents never really bought me a lot of stuff, so what I had was very limited. Just throughout the years, it was always like, oh, I want to watch Star Wars again. Oh, I enjoy Star Wars. Oh, I like this. Because we didn't have the level of merchandising we have today for things when we were kids. They had like toys and this, but they didn't have it on towels, bed sheets.
They did.
They did, but not like it's more.
It's even worse.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I've always just kind of had Star Wars has always been there. You know, I'm more of a Star Wars person than I am a Star Trek person, even though I enjoy Star Trek. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, for me, I think it was just carrying over, and then I was excited for the remasters, and then I saw the remasters and was like, wanted to kill myself, and then I saw
the special editions.
Yeah, the special editions, the ones that distinctly, if you remember VHS releases, you remember the silver one or the gold one. It was either pan and scan or widescreen. Pan and scan. Hopefully, our listeners know what the fuck that is. I'm mentioning like Betamax and
Sure, some of them
Panascan.
have-
I feel so old.
Some of them have parents that'll tell them what this means.
But I think for me, I've always wanted more Star Wars, and so I read some of the comic books later on and stuff, and enjoyed some of those, and never got into the old ones, more of the Dark Horse ones. But yeah, I mean,
and you're reading all the current Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I'm reading all the current Marvel stuff, which is they're doing a really good job with those, even though they dismissed the canon of the old stuff.
Yeah.
Played some of the video games that came out. Really enjoyed those. So again, it's kind of always been there, but I'm not like, I think this is the most diehard kind of Star Wars
Phase.
fangirl I've ever been. Right? Like, so
I'm gonna put you in the spotlight. Because fuck the prequels, original trilogy in order. What's your order? What's your order? Hurry up. No thinking.
Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Empire.
Empire is your least favorite.
Yep.
Wow. All right. You're fired from this podcast, but all right. That's an opinion one's allowed to have.
This is the thing is everybody, when they ask me why, I'm like, because Empire is so boring in the middle of it. Like, Hoth is amazing. It's my favorite scene in Star Wars is the attack on, like, all the battle stuff on Hoth. It's like, I love that stuff, but the middle of Empire is so boring. Like, and then when they get to Cloud City, it was just kind of like, and then it's like the movie was bookended. There's awesome stuff at the beginning and the end, but the middle you can kind of just skip. So for me, that never really resonated. Star Wars did, because overall with story and everything, it was the most well-rounded of them.
Okay.
Return was great for what it had at the time, but yeah, so I don't care if I'm in the minority.
I don't care. No. Chris Noyes, you're in the furthest end of the spectrum. You're the baby of the group.
Yeah, I think so.
Were you alive when the prequels came out? No,
Prequels?
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Jesus Christ.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I hope I'm joking.
Do I need to ID you for that beer, sir?
No, you don't.
What's your... Because we all grew up either before the movies or, during the original trilogy. So you were not alive then.
No, I am. I was born in '85, so it was after the movies came
you
out.
didn't miss by too much.
No, but I'm when you told me about Secret Origin, I'm racking my brain the last week trying to figure out the first
when it started.
time I remember it. Yeah, in
Hopefully it's
third
not Jar Jar
grade.
Binks.
No. In third grade, some kid in my class signed my yearbook and drew a TIE fighter and X-wing in there, like small little doodles. So at some point, as an eight-year-old, I was already into Star Wars. I don't know how I was into it. But the first media that I can remember consuming was, oddly enough, the novelization, or the Shadows of the Empire novel.
Okay.
Which
that came out about
also, coincidentally, was the first video game of Star Wars I ever played. I actually played that and then Rogue Squadron on 64. Love this. Anyway, I was really into, at the time, the expanded universe, because I love to read. And we had a few of the books in our school library. And so I read a few different books and then went to try and go find the movies. And I think my mom and dad ended up buying me the gold, silver edition.
Had you seen them before the time you got into like the games or books or anything? Or?
So eventually I did. My aunt and uncle owned VHS copies of the original cuts of the movies, but they were like 4:3 ratios.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Pan and scan.
Okay, so that's what pan and scan is.
See, I told you.
I know 4:3. I didn't know it went by a different name. So I had seen the originals, and I loved them, but I eventually found out that 4:3 they cut parts of it off. So I spent a long time trying to find the widescreen versions to watch. Actually, a parent in my scout troop had the Laserdisc versions, and so that was the first time I actually saw them all widescreen.
That's the fancy version.
Watching his old school Laserdisc setup of the movies, which was amazing. He had
halfway through, you had to flip it.
Yeah, he had all the Star Trek Laserdiscs as well. So
nice.
Watched all those too. But yeah, so I started out with the books. Never got into the comics until late in high school and in college. But yeah, it was mostly EU. And in my garage, I have pretty much every novel that came out post Jedi up through the Yuuzhan Vong War, and then the 9-book series after that with Luke and his son.
Yeah.
I got halfway through that before I kind of fell off. But I own almost all those books.
Nice.
And yeah, so mostly novels, some video games here and there.
What about prequel stuff? I mean, did you get really into that when those came out, or because you would have been? You're only a couple years younger.
Yeah,
than me, so.
I mean, I was in 8th grade when Episode 1 came out. I saw it in theaters. I had a friend who saw it opening night, and he loved it. I saw it, and I loved it. And then it wasn't until I got into high school and Episode 2 came out that I started realizing that it was actually a pretty bad movie. And I've come to my own conclusions in the years since. But I saw Episode 2 in the theaters. And then Episode 3, I was in college, so I was able to take the day off from school, and I waited in line at the Spectrum down in Irvine for the midnight show, and that was an experience too. But yeah, so I saw the movies, I saw the prequels in theaters, didn't get to see the special editions in theaters, but I wanted to. Yeah, so I mean, I've been waiting for a good Star Wars premiere since 2005 because I couldn't make the first two because I was too young.
Yeah.
But definitely made Episode 3, and it was okay. But this is definitely better.
So original trilogy, because fuck the prequels. What's your order?
So my order is 5, 6, 4.
Okay, I assume that's going to be most people's order. That tends to be the way people go about it. But yeah, okay.
And I'll kind of refute Brock's boring statement about 5. I mean, it is slow and not, there's no action, but there's so much just sort of like knowledge dropped about the Force and like how it works, how you use it. And so that to me is like, super interesting because that's the basis of how everything is supposed to work, barring midichlorians.
Right.
So,
all right, Lane, and like I said, obviously, feel free to jump in if when people are talking, if you got something to add. So, Lane, let's hear your story. I actually have no clue what you think of Star Wars.
Complete opposite end now. So, Star Wars Origins, first movie I saw, I was about 5 years old. In the back of a car at a drive-in watching Empire on the big screen. I think I fell asleep halfway through the movie because I was only 5.
Fell asleep.
And then I ended up...
of course he fell asleep. The middle part of that movie is boring.
Yeah, I think I fell asleep sometime after Hoth. And then I ended up watching... Because my mom is a huge fan of Star Wars.
Cool.
And so she got all the stuff for Star Wars. And so I ended up rewatching it soon after that because it was years for Return.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Return was the first one I saw in the theaters.
Proper.
Actually understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, with my mom being a big fan, I was into the toys, so I had a lot of the toys, the figures. In fact, I found a bunch recently that are still have my old toys. Found a couple still on the card, and merchandise-wise, the scary part, I found a set of Return of the Jedi toothbrushes.
Oh, jeez.
Still in package.
I was going to say, if they're open, just don't use them. Cause...
No, they're still in the package and everything. Got the Toys R Us sticker for like $1 on it.
eBay that
orange
shit.
One?
Yeah.
Dang.
eBay that shit.
So, yeah.
Got a Boba Fett.
Been a while.
Yeah. So kind of what's your story as you get on in years? I mean, did you follow the prequels or comics or games? Or...
I read the comics, the old Marvel ones.
Yeah.
They were okay. I think that somewhere, because for me, that before Return would almost be high school already for me. So that's like, at that point, before high school, I started changing into Transformers. For me, was the bigger thing.
Yeah.
So kind of lost interest in Star Wars, except until the movies came out again. Watched them all opening night. I think Episode 1 was a work outing.
Oh, cool.
The whole company went out to the theater.
Nice.
We were out there at I think it started at 9. We were there at 2 in the afternoon.
Oh, I guess this is a question I forgot to ask the two of you as well with Lane. Any Episode 1 camp outers? Anyone camping out? Episode 1? No?
Not overnight.
No, I didn't camp overnight. I stayed in the long-ass lines, though.
Yeah. we were right behind the tents.
Nice, nice.
The tents were in front of us, and
Then the regular guys that showed up that day.
yeah, back in the old Century Domes.
So did you follow through like any of the cartoons or any of the current stuff? Or?
No, I didn't really follow the cartoons because I've lost interest since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I still follow it. I like it, but it's not been my key thing.
Sure.
Ever since comics, it's been DC, sorry. Batman. And
Now, if DC published a Star Wars comic, I'd buy them all. So, all right.
and then, of course, I do read the current ones,
Yeah.
and they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Wait. His order.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's your order? Sorry.
Remember,
Sorry.
screw the first three.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's the same as Brock.
Yeah. Okay.
Star Wars, Return, then Empire.
Really? Wow. Okay.
And it's not because they're a bad movie. It's just, the nitpicking thing would be, as a kid, the nostalgia factor is there, where for me, it was all about the lightsaber fights.
Okay.
And I was, being a kid at that age, that's what the wow factor was. So Empire didn't have enough to me.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't enough, besides the ship fighting, there wasn't enough. And I think a lot of the special effects kind of, at the time, they were high tech. But as I was growing up, they got cheesier and cheesier. So the difference between the eras and the special effects, I think, were too big to me to cast away.
Okay.
So, like, Empire kind of was a sore thumb to me at the time.
Okay.
And
okay. It's fair. You're wrong, but that's fair.
that's just, my old kid self thinking that. So
I'm just joking.
No, but I mean, I don't know that.
Troll.
My current self, I'm not sure what I would really judge them at.
Have you watched them recently?
Well, on TV, but not like a serious sitting. No.
Yeah. And actually, that's a question for you guys, too. Did you watch the original trilogy before, or even the prequels before the new movie?
You want to go first?
You can.
All right. I actually, Allie, my fiance, bought me the Blu-rays for Christmas last year.
You threw them in the trash where they belong.
No. I can't. This is my fourth copy of the series in some form. Like I still have the VHS at home in a box in the garage. I've got the original DVDs that came out in the weird, funky tin case. I've got most of just the normal DVDs of the prequel trilogy somewhere, and now I've got this one. So, about 4 or 5 months ago, I decided to watch them in the Machete order.
Oh, okay.
So, I did 4, 5, 2, 3. And then I got really into the special features DVDs, which are actually pretty bad. Like I didn't like them at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they're just on the Blu-ray. They're just rips of like the old VHS or the old DVD stuff, right?
Yeah, and they're not like story vignettes about anything. It's just sort of like here's some storyboards and here's some text for you to read, not like stuff to watch and listen to.
Right.
But I ended up just killing my last few hours of like awakeness watching that, so I skipped out on 6. But I've gone back and watched 6 since.
Yeah.
So I've done the good 5. I mean the better 5, I guess you could say. But I've done them within the last 6 months.
Brock, now I know you were just watching them.
Yeah, last week I was like, screw it, I'll do it. So I didn't do the Machete order. I did somewhat of it. I did 4 or 5. And then I went online and to the YouTube one that you posted, which there's a 3.5 hour edit of 1, 2, and 3. It was on in the background. I felt like I got enough information.
Yeah.
Was that the Phantom edit or something different?
I don't remember which one it was. It was
it's like a 3.5 hour cut of all 3 movies.
All 3 movies. So
because the Phantom edit is there's a couple different.
That was
ones,
like the first big one.
But yeah, there's another version of it where they cut 1, 2, 3, and it's only about 2 hours in length, so they cut even more. I actually found someone did. Sorry for hijacking you, Brock, but someone posted something called episodes 1, 2, and 3 anti-cheese versions, and I watched all. I watched 2, and I've got 3 bookmarked. But this guy goes through all of them and just cuts out as much bullshit as he can from those movies. So episode 1 is like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie. He cuts it down to about an hour 30.
Yeah,
like the best part that I think is he scrambles all the alien voices and puts in subtitles. So like you don't have racist Asian Nemoidian English, because that really bothers me, because
it's really bad.
It's terrible. Replaces all of Jar Jar's dialogue, and his subtitles change as well, and they make sense.
It's
not some stupid bullshit. He removes most of the Gungan crap, like
Yeah.
the Gungan fight at the end is totally cut out. The Gungan underwater city's cut out, and the movie flows a lot better. There's a couple hiccups, obviously, just because he's editing something that's already out there. But it's a pretty good version, and one doesn't suck as hard. So
Yeah, this one cut out the whole pod race. It cut out. I think it basically cut out all of the middle of Phantom Menace, pretty much. And then yesterday afternoon, I finished by watching Return. I didn't sit down and watch them, just because you have two kids. It's on in the background, and I've seen it so many times that it's kind of I did sit down and watch Hoth twice, but because I watched Star Wars one night, and I was like, oh, I just want to watch Hoth, so I put it on and watched the first Hoth scene, and then the next day I started it over again.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed going back and watching those. I asked my daughter was more interested in watching it than my son.
That's cool. No, your son loves Guardians of the Galaxy.
He loves Guardians of the Galaxy.
He'll get
it's funny because he goes, Star Wars. I'm like, no. He's like, you want to watch Star Wars? He's like, Star Lord. I'm like, oh, Star Lord.
All right, Charlie.
So, similar story as it was. I have a very, very vague memory of going to the theater for Return of the Jedi. At that age, I really couldn't tell you more than just generalizations and that kind of stuff. And it was enough to get me obsessed with the toys for a little while. I do remember literally obsessing, I finally got this toy and that kind of thing. And yes, I had a Chewbacca.
You still do?
I remember that.
I just remember I have a small stuffed Ewok somewhere.
Nice.
But that didn't really, that obsession didn't last long. It kind of got drowned out by He-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers and all the stuff that I went through toy-wise. But one of the things that I remember very, very clearly about the original trilogy is
Han shot first.
A lot of the holidays, they would actually marathon them on USA and that kind of thing. So I remember they became sort of a holiday tradition for me of, on those holidays, of course I'm going to throw on the Star Wars marathon. Why wouldn't I throw it on? Which is something somewhat unique to a lot of those sort of obsessions as a kid, is that it was sort of constant that I had interest, but not obsession. And then you got into the special editions as they got released into theaters. And yes, similar to nowadays, had a group of friends. We were all like, we're going to go see these in the theaters. We bought tickets for opening day. And I was thinking about it, and I think that is the first time I ever marathoned something in a theater, because you could still watch 4 or 5 when 6 came out. So literally we bought tickets for 4 or 5 and then 6 on opening day.
Now, you're not talking the special editions. You're talking the original.
No, I'm talking about the special editions when those had the big theatrical.
They also did the theatrical release for the one prior to that as well. It wasn't the special editions with all the crap. It was just the remasters.
Yeah, the remasters.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the remaster, actually.
Okay, where they added 1 or 2 little things. It wasn't the special editions came later.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there was still obviously little nitpicks and that kind of stuff, but no, I remember specifically doing the marathon, being super excited for the marathon, and then it kind of went into hibernation mode again until I bought the DVDs when they came out, and I guess really what it came down to is it kind of ramped up over time because it was a constant interest. I constantly played a video game here and there, or picked up a random comic, because I used to be really into going to a used bookstore and just buying a massive amount of really cheap comics that somebody would bring in. So of course, if there was a random Star Wars Marvel book or whatnot, I'd buy it and read it and kind of go, wow, I wish I had more of these in order, but
now you have omnibuses.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you stick through? Because I know you were a fan of Clone Wars and Rebels, so you stuck through a lot of it.
Oh yeah, I still remember watching the old Droids cartoon when it was on, and
nice.
Again, it's one of my favorite things when it comes to a lot of those old cartoons and comic books and that kind of stuff is when you go back and realize, holy crap, Paul Dini was involved in that show.
Droids?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I really like the fact that when you kind of look at the history of a lot of this stuff, it kind of becomes circular with my obsessions.
Yeah.
The stuff that I like, you tend to find out, holy crap, so-and-so was involved in that.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to rewatch the movies before the new one?
So I rewatched a lot of them, but not entirely in parts because working and all that, it was kind of more important to get my kids watching them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it kind of came down to sitting down my kids to watch them. And then if I didn't get a chance to finish it, I didn't get a chance to finish it, which is fine. And they're actually finishing Return of the Jedi right now.
Oh, nice.
I'm here instead.
Nice.
So I have just a question. Since this is the holiday special,
yeah,
has anyone actually seen the holiday special?
I saw it like years ago.
Yeah,
when it was originally out.
No,
kind of thing,
well, no. Like
when did it come out?
78.
I think it was
79. It was really.
I thought it was in
early.
the 80s.
It was really, yeah. I remember seeing it on TV.
I think it was in the 80s because I think they replayed it a couple times.
Wasn't it in between Empire? Wasn't it in between Star Wars and Empire?
I thought it was between.
Oh, it was between Empire and Jedi.
Empire and Jedi.
You're right.
Yeah,
no, I saw it on like some bootleg VHS years ago.
Someone in my, I was in the film club in high school, which wasn't. We just watched movies at lunch. But someone brought in the holiday special one day, and I just remember watching this and being like, "This is like an amazing train wreck." Like, it's too bad that they don't put this out. I'm sure people would spend money to buy this.
I'm sure they will now.
Yeah.
But I guess George Lucas, that's the black sheep of.
Yeah.
It's more black than episode 1. So,
well, I guess I have some. You can always tell when something's horrible with me because my mind has a fantastic tendency to repress. Like I don't remember. I know I watched it. I know I went out of my way to watch it when I found out it existed, and I can't remember a single thing about it.
I just remember the cartoon with the Boba Fett. That's all I remember about it.
I don't remember anything.
And
I remember seeing it, but I don't remember
the Wookiee family singing like holiday songs or something like that. Yeah, the Life Day songs.
I think Leia was with them at the time singing too. Yeah.
Charlie, 4, 5, and 6. Give me your order. You got
5,
an order?
6, 4.
All right, the proper order, correct.
And the main reason why I think 5 is up there for me is, as I've talked a lot about, I am very, very into lore and mythology and that kind of stuff. So getting into a lot of those details and such appealed to me quite a bit.
Yeah, just too bad it wasn't very good, huh? So, I have no idea what you're saying. Everyone else. We're going to switch out now while I tell my fantastic Star Wars origin. It's the same as all these guys because we're all roughly the same age, of course, but I was not born when Star Wars came out. I was very, very young when Empire came out. I'm going to take that in. But I did see Jedi in the theater. I have vague recollections of it. I mean, I would have been 4 years old, but I do remember seeing it. So, that started it. I had a ton of the figures. I used to get all the figures. I think it was just on the Geek Box I was telling a story about how I got all the cheap like stormtroopers out of like $1 like toy bin or something because they were all on sale because they were blowing them out at discount after Jedi came out. So, with me, Star Wars, I read a lot of the books. I really got into the Star Wars Dark Horse comics through Dark Empire, which was the first. That was the first Star Wars comic post the Marvel books. I never read any of the Marvel stuff, but I really like Dark Empire. I think they came out I want to say 1990. That sounds right. I read a lot of the early novels, but then Star Wars kind of faded for me. I really didn't stick with it for a long time. I did see the remasters in the theater and then the special editions. By the time the special editions came out, I was just like, I don't know. I don't like this. I don't know what this is. But then when the prequels came out, obviously, like I think most people, very, very hyped. I was with groups that we camped out for 2 weeks. I mean, I wasn't there all 2 weeks, and I didn't stay every night, but I was there for a good chunk of it. I remember the best part of being there was I saw The Matrix like 5 times in the theater because it came out at the same time. I ended up seeing episode 2 and 3 in the theater too, but man, those prequels just killed me. And for the last, when was episode 1? 99? 98? I just 99. I'm getting the 99 nod here. I just did not stick with it. I could have cared less about Star Wars the last 15 years. Those prequels did a great job of just killing any interest I had in the movies. I still liked them. I watched them at holiday. They were always around Christmas and Thanksgiving. They would run the old ones, and I'd watch those on TV as a kid. But as an adult, Star Wars was just not a thing I was into. And then the new one, then they sold to Disney And then the new one started to come out, and all of a sudden it's like I'm an 8-year-old kid again. Like, you know, I have that same feeling I did when I was young, and it's great because I loved Star Wars when I was a kid, and I still love the movies. We watched all 3 of them fairly recently. The first time for Leanne, my wife, she hadn't seen them before, so she watched all of them. And yeah. I'm gonna go like these guys. Empire is tough to beat. Empire is my favorite, but Jedi is a very close second. I love Return of the Jedi. Again, that was the first one I saw in the theater. It's so action, and I love all the fight scenes and the X-Wing fights, and especially the speeder bike scene on Endor is absolutely one of my favorites. And the Jabba Barge stuff is amazing. And yeah, and I mean, I love Star Wars. It's like A+, A-. They're all amazing films, but you know, we love lists, so have a list. We're now joined by amazingly 4 other people who, through the power of people getting out of chairs and other people sitting in those chairs, we have other people here. Why don't we start on the left and introduce yourself? The man to my left.
Oh, Adam Fitch?
Adam Fitch.
The Geek Box Adam Fitch.
Geek Box. You may remember him. A highly requested guest to finally come back on this podcast.
I've never been on this podcast.
Not you, the person to your left.
Brian Ellison.
I think they turned your mic off. Why don't you turn the top off? Did they turn your mic off? Okay. Why don't you say your name again?
Brian Ellison.
Hello, Brian Ellison.
Hello, Ryan.
You had a lot of people that loved your first appearance on this podcast.
Yeah, that was the Fantastic Four movie, 2015.
Yeah. So we went from reviewing the Fantastic Four to Star Wars, so a little bit leap in quality, I hope. So.
And a much better leap.
Yeah. Next up.
Kevin Sharp.
Kevin, you may remember, has done some work in Hollywood, also an author, and he's one of my great customers here at the store. And you two especially, I really wanted on because you guys have some very interesting history with Star Wars.
I think our last discussion on here was Daredevil.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. And finally, last but certainly not least, the most important person in the room.
I'm totally least, Ryan Scott.
Ryan fucking motherfucking comedy button Scott.
I'm sitting here in our own studio not wearing the headphones. This feels weird.
And also the Geek Box, because I guess that's a thing. That's a thing that some people listen to as well. So yeah. What's happening?
Some people.
What's happening?
We saw Star Wars.
We did.
It was awesome.
So everyone that's been on this podcast, as well as the few people that couldn't make it tonight, we had...
You had like 45
between the couple
tickets,
groups.
Right?
Yeah, we had like 45 people that saw Star Wars. But before we talk about The Force Awakens, Adam, you're an old man.
I'm not that old.
Tell us about Star Wars, the original stuff. What's your Star Wars secret origin?
You know, I was thinking about this while the previous guests were talking about it, and I think I have an odd history of Star Wars because I was born in '76. First one came out, in '77.
A little too young for that.
Yeah, but when did Empire come out?
80.
Yeah.
80. Well, when did E.T. come out?
84?
82.
82. Because I remember seeing E.T. in the theater, and I believe that was my first film I saw in the theater, if I'm not mistaken.
That might have been my first movie as well.
Man, you know what my first movie in the theater was?
What's that?
Dragnet. With Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks.
That's, wow. So anyway, yeah, so I was a bit too young for Empire Strikes Back, but then younger listeners may not remember this, but they used to re-release movies like in the theaters. Yeah. So my parents actually, I think between the time Empire Strikes Back and between Return of the Jedi, they re-released Star Wars in the theaters. I believe they did it a few times, actually.
Well, I remember I couldn't go because it sold out, but I remember driving into Boston specifically to see all 3 movies maybe the year after Jedi came out. And because they had them all in a row. It's like Charlie was saying earlier, it's kind of that first, early movie marathon.
Yeah,
so they definitely did.
Yeah, I mean,
limited engagement, but yeah, they.
Well,
did.
I mean, they used to do that with a lot of movies. Like 2001 came out in the theater. I mean, they don't do it so much anymore because of it's
a lot of the Disney movies. They used to always reissue.
Yeah, like Beauty, like Sleeping Beauty and all that stuff. Yeah. But anyway, I remember my parents must have seen it. I think they went out to see it one night, and they came back and were telling me the story of the original Star Wars because they just seen it in the theater for the first time. And my mom would often do this, would go out to see a movie and then come back and tell me about the movie.
Okay. While she left you at home.
Here's this thing you're missing.
Well, okay, so
brat.
one of them was she did this also with Raiders of the Lost Ark, which again I'm like
Your family was cruel to you.
5 or 6 years old. So like, if I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark in the movie theater, that would have scarred me for life. You know what I mean? So I remember her describing like the story of Star Wars, and I remember especially the trash compactor scene. You know what I mean? And I remember her describing like what C-3PO and R2-D2 were doing outside, like, oh no, they're being crushed, and stuff. It's a very vivid memory. I don't know quite why, but anyway. So after that, Return of the Jedi came out, and that was 83. How old would I have been?
6, 7?
7.
Okay. I was still, honestly, I was a wimp when I was a kid. I was easily like scared of like movie previews even. I would leave the room if a scary movie preview came on. And so I definitely 100% remember the media push for Return of the Jedi. Like everywhere, they were talking about the characters, and my parents, for some reason, bought me this horrible Jabba the Hutt like coloring book or something like that, and
yeah, that's sad.
It had Jabba the Hutt like on the cover, like not of his physical thing, and I thought Jabba the Hutt was the scariest, ugliest thing I'd ever seen in my life. He was drooling and all this stuff, and so I remember I hid it because I didn't want to look at it, so I hid it in like the very top top shelf of my closet, just because I was like, this thing scares me, get it away from me. And I just think I was too young to appreciate it at the time, and
that book is now worth $10,000.
Probably is. I didn't color it, but I mean, I remember seeing like all the characters and like all the kids in my school were into it, and I remember one of the, and so things filters through. You hear things about the movie, like Darth Vader dies at the end of the movie, and I remember they came up with a special Anakin Skywalker figure. Not like I'm talking about
like the ghost figure or something.
Something. No. It was like a
that later had to be changed.
Yeah, it did. No, but it was an Anakin Skywalker figure. Like when he was young or something like that.
Did he give you creepy love stares?
I don't know, but no. I mean, there's ads for it on TV. But like I said, I remember the media blitz for Return of the Jedi very, very well. And like I said, everyone was seeing it at school.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand the movie series, so I all I remember is hearing that Darth Vader. Like Darth Vader dies at the end of the movie, and I was still thinking that Darth Vader was the enemy in the movie.
Yeah.
And so like some kids said, "Hey, did you see Return of the Jedi yet?" I'm all, "Oh yeah, I saw it. Oh, I like it when Darth Vader dies at the end." And the kid's like, "Really?" I'm all, yeah. And it wasn't later until I realized like why his reaction was that.
Sure.
So, but then
go ahead. Yeah.
Then my friend got a couple of them on VHS tapes, and I watched it about when I was 8 or 9 or something, and I was more
understood.
Yeah, Jabba the Hutt didn't freak me out so much. I mean, looking back, I mean, I love the imagery of Jabba the Hutt now. I think it's fantastic. I love it, but at the time, it was just I was not a fan of like creepy things, and he just freaked me out.
Now, did you stick with Star Wars as the years went by? Or?
No, not at all. Well, I had an old. I think I've said this before. I had an older cousin who's 7 years older than me, and he had like all the figures. Like, so we would go to his house, like I was talking about for like Christmas or like family get-togethers, and he had like friggin' everything. Like you were talking about your army of stormtroopers. He had like all that stuff. And like he was totally obsessed with Star Wars. Matt is his name, and he was the right age for this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I was just a little too young when it came out, And then I remember when the special editions came out, the re-releases in '97, I believe was the first one. Am I incorrect?
That sounds right.
I was actually working at McDonald's at the time, and I had a coworker who was huge into Star Wars, which seemed a bit odd to me at the time. Like, because I was like, what are you into? He's all Star Wars, and that was kind of the time you were talking about. Like, it wasn't really cool to like Star Wars. There was not really any new media.
They did like novels and games, but there was a little bit. But it was a real dead time.
And I was like, okay. But then like the next year, like the movies came out, and like so I saw it. Me and him, like he's like, I want to go see Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, and I hadn't seen the movies in ages, and so we saw. I think we saw all three of them in the theater together, and he was like one of those. I'd never been in a theater where with the guy I was with or the girl I was with was one of the guys who goes whoa, but he was like, man, he was so into it. And I just remember seeing his excitement, like, got me excited.
Yeah.
And like I said, I hadn't seen the movies in years and years, so I didn't remember the changes. The changes weren't readily apparent to me.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed all of them, and that got me hyped for the prequels. And again, when I saw it, I again that was '99, and again I liked it. I said okay, that was an all right start, but then. I think me and my brother saw Attack of the Clones together in the theater, and we're like, this is going bad fast. And then by the end, like Revenge of the Sith, like we literally had to be dragged to the theater by one of our friends at work. He was like, "You want to see Revenge of the Sith?" I'm like, "I guess." And it was just torturous, torturous. So I mean. Yeah, I grew an appreciation for the original trilogy, but yeah, all the expanded universe I've never been into. Oh, I'll tell you what I did like when I was a kid was the Ewoks cartoon show. I don't know. I don't know if you guys remember.
He's getting a big hug for the Ewok love.
I don't know if you guys remember the Ewok. Do you remember the Ewok cartoon?
Sure.
Like we're the What you remember?
Yeah. I mean, I saw like a little bit.
Yeah. So I watched that, and I think you were mentioning earlier about the movies. I think we watched those too. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like you said, until like George sold his stuff to Disney, I was kind of like, well, we're never going to really have until he's dead. Like nobody's ever going to make a good Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
So my
original. What's your order? Original.
Yeah, my order is Empire. The original one. I think the original one is very good and actually underrated.
Sure.
And Return of the Jedi. But they're all very, very good movies.
Okay. I think we all agree. Brian.
Okay, well,
what's your history with Star Wars?
Well, as we know, the first Star Wars movie opened May 25th, 1977. So that's when I would have seen it. In not when it opened up, but not too long after that. My actual first exposure.
Poser.
Sorry?
Huh?
Go ahead.
Poser.
Well, I apologize for not seeing it opening day, but
we gotta fight Brian to get him to a movie theater opening day these days. It's like, yeah.
Well, it was such a big movie. I mean, it was one of those things where I knew it was going to be used and the crowds and all that, so I just decided to wait a little bit. I mean, I saw it.
You were a teenager at this point.
Yeah,
right?
I was 19 when I saw it.
Okay. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. I know what you meant, buddy. I know. It'll be payback later. No, so I saw it when I was 19, but my actual first exposure to it was there used to be an old show on Fridays and Saturday nights in the Bay Area on Channel 2, KTVU, called Creature Features, and was hosted by Bob Wilkins. And so I was like, oh, I know he's going to show the Star Wars trailer. Cool, I want to see that. I hear this, this awesome movie, you're talking about. And
was this like 90? Was this like 78 or
no, 77,
76?
Yeah, the movie was getting ready to come out, so it hadn't opened up.
So like early 77.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, maybe just before the movie opened up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the time frame, but there was a lot of buzz about this movie.
Yeah.
Right? So he, as he was wont to do on the show, he'd get something that he knew everybody wanted to see. He'd wait, he'd play it off until he got to the end of the show. Right? So I waited, till the end to see this trailer. So my first exposure was like the Star Wars trailer. And I remember watching it going, well, this is interesting. It looks kind of old school in a way, kind of an old-fashioned movie with some interesting special effects, but it didn't necessarily blow me away. I wasn't like, wow, this is the movie everyone's talking about, right? So So sure enough, the movie time rolls around. I go see it, and I'm sitting in the theater. I see this the crawl of the New Hope crawl, and of course it wasn't called the New Hope then, but I'm going like, wow, this is cool. This is amazing. And then I see this this large battle cruiser come down from the top of the screen. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And then it opens up, and there's all these explosions and fights, and here comes Darth Vader, and I'm hooked.
Yeah.
Right. So
what's that Star Wars like? That very first time, because you would have been much more conscious than I think most of us were.
What was the vibe like at that time?
Was the audience like?
Oh no, the audience was they loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were hooping and hollering and cheering and just going crazy.
Yeah, when that initial just full screen. And that initial it
was amazing.
fanfare,
and I saw it like at one of the Century 21 or 22 theaters that had the large screen.
That's where I saw it.
So it had a very great impact on the people in the audience. And just so like everybody else, I was amazed. Even though I was 19, many people talk about, hey, I was a kid and it was like amazing, but it was amazing even at my age. And it was the first movie that I would pay to see multiple times. I'd never pay to see a movie more than once in the theater. I saw this, although again, Ryan Scott will say I'm a poser, but I only saw it 4 times. I didn't see it like 50 times.
I saw episode 1 more than that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I saw it 4 times and just, I thought it was great. And so we roll around to 1980 and we get Empire Strikes Back. Yeah,
before that, can I like what was the media? Because I wasn't around for that. Like, I mean, I was, but what was the was the media like just exploding around this thing? Like what? Like was Ted Koppel type? I don't know. Yeah.
Well, people were talking about the movie. There certainly was a big buzz. It did have an impact, but nowhere near the way they would play it up now for Episode 7.
Oh, okay.
Right. So back in those days. These movies were popular, and people would talk about Jaws and movies like that. But you didn't have the 24-hour news cycle where they could just keep playing this stuff up. You didn't have like Burger King putting out Star Wars toys before the movie came out. So this just I think caught a lot of people by surprise. From what I understand, I believe it even caught George Lucas by surprise because he thought he was making kind of a small movie that no one would really care about too much. My understanding is I remember reading back in the day that he actually left the mainland and went to Hawaii to hang out because he didn't want to be around for this. And that's when he got together with Spielberg and Lucas had said, I've got an idea, maybe for a movie, and Spielberg's saying, hey, I'd like to direct a James Bond movie, and Lucas is, well, I got a better idea. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that apparently that's where, I don't know if that's an apocryphal story, but that's kind of probably where Raiders came from. But when I saw Empire, I'm thinking like, how do you top Star Wars? And I'm like, oh, you top it with Empire Strikes Back. I'm watching the scenes on Hoth, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you go through the movie and you have all these great battles, and you have that great lightsaber duel at the end.
I just watched Empire a few days ago, and man, the Hoth stuff holds up to this day. It is
absolutely
such a great scene.
Absolutely, and we had one of the best lightsaber duels with Darth Vader and Luke, and you learn that he's his father, and it's just a lot of great stuff going on there. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because years later, when I was able to watch all 3 movies in one setting, when they did it for the first time, I was struck by the fact that Star Wars, while still fun, didn't hold up as well for me. Right? It seemed more simpler, more kind of a comic book type story. But Empire really held up. Right? Really held up, and I liked it quite a bit.
Now, do you remember if you knew going into Empire Strikes Back whether you knew that Darth Vader was his father or?
Yeah, I did actually, because in Time Magazine at that time did a Star Wars feature for each movie. They did it for the first one before it came out. They did it for the second one and then the third one, and they had spoilers in there. I mean, they say spoilers, so it wasn't like I read it and I didn't know what they were going to do, but there was a spoiler that it was about Darth Vader being his father. Right. So I did know that going in, but still, it was a cool moment. I mean, it really didn't spoil it for me. I mean, it made sense actually. Right. So it's like, okay, I understand that. It was also the first time, which I always thought was interesting, quick sidebar, but it was the first time that George Lucas had said that he had now planned to make 9 movies. That after Empire came back, it's like, yeah, I think I can do 9 movies. I have the story arc. Now, he would later deny that.
He took the number of profits he made on the first 2 movies. It's like, 9 sounds good. I can live off 9.
But he said he had this. He decided to plot out this 9-part story arc in which he'd make episodes, 4, 5, and 6. Then he'd go back and he'd make 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And then he'd come back years later when the cast had aged, and he'd make 7, 8, and 9. Now, strangely enough,
Well, that kind of happened.
Correct. Strangely enough, though, when the 6 movies were done in 2005, when he was asked about that in a magazine article, he said, "No, I always thought of it as a 6-part story." He said he thought of it as the rise and fall of and redemption of Anakin Skywalker. So I always thought that was kind of amusing. The other thing too was I was talking to Ryan Scott earlier about this, where Lucas kind of came back and said, like, yeah, I always had the idea that Darth Vader was going to be Luke's father. He said the word Dutch. He said in Dutch, Darth Vader means dark father. So it was there. But Lawrence Kasdan, who was the writer on Empire, said that, well, we didn't really come up with that until we were well into the writing of the movie. So again, that's the thing about Lucas I always find rather amusing because his stories change. But so like many people, loved the trilogy. And was looking forward to the next trilogy, and I thought, this would be even great because Darth Vader was my favorite character. The dark side was more interesting to me at that time, and I just thought that the storytelling ability would be much more interesting to see Anakin Skywalker, in my opinion, than Luke Skywalker. Right, so I was looking forward to that, and like everybody, I guess most everybody, I was disappointed and thought that the second trilogy, was not very good. And I know a lot of people seem to like Revenge of the Sith, but
I don't.
I go with Phantom Menace as the best of the bunch. Was not saying much because I don't think any of them were that great, but at least with Phantom Menace, you had Darth Maul, and it was a character I liked quite a bit. You had Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, and there was things about the movie that I didn't like Jar Jar Binks like a lot of people, but there was things about the movie that I was okay with, and that's the only one that I actually watched more than once. I've seen Phantom Menace twice, in parts of it maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
But the other 2 movies, I've only paid to see them once, and I've never watched them again. And so I guess I have to give in my Star Wars card because I haven't watched these multiple times. But they irritate me.
Yeah.
Those ones don't count.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that Ryan says that because the reality for me is you always hear about fans talking about continuity and canon and what's important and what's not. And I've always felt that when it comes to like Star Wars, Star Trek, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man,
you can brush the crap away.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can't, there's too many hands in the pie. There's too many creators there for people to get hung up on this. And so I borrow a page from, believe it or not, Bruce Lee, who created Jeet Kune Do, where the idea is like it's a martial art without a martial art. It's a system without a system, meaning you take what you need and you discard the rest. So in the Brian universe, episodes 1, 2, and 3 do not exist.
Yes.
Episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7 do exist,
Yes.
and I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with 8 and 9.
This is how me and Ryan feel about Highlander.
Yeah.
No, don't get me started on Highlander.
There's only one.
Don't get me started on Highlander.
Now,
Well, there can be only
Exactly.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
do you feel like you followed Star Wars kind of between the movies?
Absolutely.
Or
I mean,
did you kind of distance yourself from it?
I was old enough to where I enjoyed it. So I read the 3 novelizations of the first 3 movies. I read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was the first Star Wars book by Alan Dean Foster. They hadn't figured out yet what they were going to do because there was kind of a romantic interest between Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker.
Luke, yeah.
But and I always kept reading about stuff. I didn't get into it with reading all the books. I have read comics based in the Star Wars universe. I really enjoy what Marvel's doing with Darth Vader currently and the Star Wars main comic now. Darth Vader is really, really good, and if people are interested, I can certainly recommend that comic. So get down to Comic Conspiracy and buy some from Ryan Higgins here.
Yeah, it's an amazing book.
But I always kept abreast of what Lucas was doing, and that's another whole topic that maybe we can cover at some point. But I have a lot of problems with Lucas and what he's done to the franchise over the years. And so my first reaction coming out of The Force Awakens is like, see, this is what happens when George Lucas is not involved in a movie. Which is harsh, I know, but I have my reasons for that. People like to say that George Lucas screwed their childhood, and I can honestly say I was 19, so he didn't screw my childhood. But even if I was 9, he didn't screw my childhood, but he did screw my adulthood, and so I do hold him responsible for that.
Kevin. Oh, wait, no. What's your order?
Sorry?
What's your order?
Well, Empire's number 1.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go with Return and then Star Wars.
Okay. Yeah. The correct order. Yeah. Kevin's giving me the luck. What's your Star Wars secret origin?
So I would have been 6 7 years old.
When the first one?
Sitting in a theater with my dad watching a movie called Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
Oh, okay.
And before that movie was a trailer for a movie called Star Wars. This is the trailer. You can find it on YouTube. The very first trailer was just a bunch of shots of aliens. And
is that the same one you would have probably seen?
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
the tagline is, it's the story of a boy, a girl, and a universe.
Okay.
As soon as the trailer's over and my 6 or 7 year old jaw is hanging open and my dad turns to me and goes, that looks like a good one. So Mania was on. I enrolled in the Star Wars fan club before the movie ever came out. You mail away for the membership kit.
He's not a poser.
You get, you get the order form for the Kenner action figures before the movie ever came out. Yeah. It was the Christmas before the movie came out. So I didn't know who any of these characters were. There's a guy in gold armor. I'm like, that must be a knight or something like that. Or there's a, you don't know who anybody is. But I was ready, locked and loaded, ready to go. And they had a lot of, the Star Wars fan club newsletter had a lot of pictures that I remember. You'd look at the still picture and wonder, like, what's the context of this? Yeah. They even had a picture of, here's Jabba the Hutt when he's a fat guy in a furry vest.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, who's that?
Han, my boy.
Yeah. I went to I don't remember the specific experience of seeing the first movie, but I remember everything building up to it. Then in between Star Wars and Empire that's where it really had its hooks in me, because now that we've seen the movie, it's like, my friends and our imaginations could run wild. Oh, what's the Clone Wars? Well, that sounds awesome. In writing, it's called, the type of writing is called distant mountains, meaning that you drop a reference to all these things that are off in the horizon that you may never get there. It's just kind of a tantalizing hint. So all of these distant mountains of this galaxy, like, wow. And we'd take turns imagining what the story was. This would have been the holiday special, I believe, in between the two.
Oh, my God.
The order form for the Boba Fett figure with the firing missile out of his rocket pack.
Pay your mortgage off if you got that thing.
I will also confess to thinking it was a brilliant idea because we couldn't wait for the sequel, which then was called Star Wars 2, before they had said the official title.
Sure.
We couldn't wait for the sequel, so I thought it was going to be a brilliant idea to adapt Star Wars for the stage. And by stage, I mean my 4th grade class. I wrote the movie as a stage play, and we performed it in 4th grade.
That's awesome.
Poster and everything.
It was probably better than episode 1.
It was basically a retelling of Star Wars with what we could do.
But again, better than episode 1.
Not as good special effects, though.
Hey, watching the paint dry on a wall is probably better.
The special effects probably hold up better, though.
Right, yeah. So this was all, Splinter the Mind's Eye was this time period. And then Empire comes out, and it's awesome. And then there's that long wait before Jedi comes out. Now, the thing that happened right before Empire was I was in a store, and I don't know, Ryan, if you guys remember the Marvel Comics adaptations.
Yeah, I bought those, read those.
The Al Williamson ones. The art is just fantastic. I'm flipping through the Empire book, and the last page of the Empire adaptation is the same last image as the movie. It's Luke and Leia and the droids standing together and watching the Millennium Falcon fly away. And I didn't know I was on the last page.
Oh.
And I saw it, I was like, oh
no.
So I told my friends, well, you guys, if you guys want to know how it ends, because this is before the movie came out. They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I think what happens is Luke and Leia get married, and Han and Chewie fly off to another adventure, because we see the Falcon flying away. And so we're okay. So that's how it ends. Now we know. And then when
Spoiler alert.
But then when we saw it, like, oh, that's actually not anything like how it ends. Jedi comes out. Now, at this point, there's action figures of everything.
Yeah.
By the time Jedi, all of the Jabba monsters.
Yeah.
Now he's not the fat guy in the fur vest anymore.
No, he's not. He's a nightmare.
And so by that time, it's, an empire, not to, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So
again,
much more than it was in 77.
Yeah, again, like I said, I was young, but I remember, it was everywhere.
Yeah, by the time of Jedi, when it was in my newsletter from the fan club, it was called Revenge of the Jedi.
Right.
Then by that point, I remember standing in line outside the theater. This was when there was a one-screen theater, so they'd have, every 2 hours would be a show. So you'd literally be waiting down the sidewalk in line.
I've seen pictures, yeah.
I stood in those lines. Yeah, definitely. And then the question you've asked to other people, Star Wars wasn't really in my life anymore.
Yeah.
I had every action figure from the first 2 movies in mint condition, complete, perfect condition, and I gave them all to my high school girlfriend. That's how uninterested in Star Wars I was, and she loves Star Wars. Like, here, I have no use of these. You have them.
Is she retired now, living off the income from those toys?
I had all the ships. I had the small die-cast metal ships and the big ones that the action figures went in.
I've made a huge mistake.
My newsletters, my catalogs from the fan club, the posters.
Ryan is like on the floor.
And I just didn't, it just wasn't, memorabilia collecting wasn't what it was then, what it is now. Like, the action figure market was not a thing then.
No.
Oh, we didn't know it was memorabilia yet.
Well, like I said, if you heard when I was sitting down, I after Jedi, I went out to discount bins and bought figures because they were like, oh, well, the movie's over. Just get rid of them, right? I was buying them for $1 a piece. Like, no one cared, right?
Right. Yeah. But so, I've seen all of the movies multiple times. I think I've owned the original trilogy on every home video format.
Yeah.
And some more than once. What was the prequel trilogy?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You saw those ones?
See, I'm, not to derail the conversation, I'm anti-prequel in general. I mean, I could count on one hand the number of prequels of anything that I think work and have fingers left over. Because if the prequel story is interesting, start the story there.
Yeah.
There's a reason you started where you started it.
Yeah. Right. Well, like you said about the distant mountain things, not all...
Yeah,
you don't need to know.
Yeah, the Clone Wars was much cooler as the distant mountains in our 5th grade minds, like making up what that could be, than it actually turned out to be in the movies. That's my problem. So I saw them all in the theater once, and I think I've seen them once since then, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good to go.
Yeah. Okay. What's your trilogy in the best of order? Because you gave me an eyeball.
Okay, well, so I will give you my order, and then I'll give a 30-second explanation.
Sure.
4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Now, in high school and college, and it was like, oh, Empire's the cool one. Empire's the dark one. Now, as I've come around as an adult, Star Wars is perfect for what it is.
Yeah.
For what it is.
Yeah.
It's a perfect standalone movie. So this whole story about, it was always 9 parts of blah, blah, maybe so in his mind. That was made as a standalone movie. I love Empire.
Yeah.
And I love Jedi, but not as sequels to Star Wars.
Okay.
They are awesome. I don't think they are good sequels to what's now called, I'm doing air quotes for the listeners, Episode 4, which was originally just called Star Wars.
Right.
So there's my disclaimer.
So, like, there's a Brian universe, so obviously there's a Kevin universe, it seems.
I've just learned to go with it and enjoy them,
Yeah.
We could have a whole...
Keep going.
We could have a whole conversation, which I'm not going to get into, of the ways that Empire and Jedi undercut the first movie. I'll just leave it at that. I love them. 4, 5, and 6 is my order. The end.
Cool. Well,
I think it's your turn, Ryan. So how did you get into these Star Wars, as you like to say? You're so tired of these Star Wars.
I'm just so tired of all these Star Wars. No, well, mine's boring because,
Wait, how old are you again?
How old am I now?
Yeah.
35.
Okay. So you're, okay.
I'm the youngest one here at the table now. But I mean, I don't. Mine's boring. I saw the Star Wars movies when I was like 8. For some reason, it's like that's all. It's like we were 8. That's just the age when you see Star Wars.
You didn't see them in the theater, though.
I never saw. No, because I was too young. Because Jedi would have been. I would have been 3 years old.
Oh, okay.
I saw the special editions in the theaters.
Yeah.
But I saw the other ones on home video, like with my cousins or something, probably, and they were awesome. And Star Wars is cool, and then the prequel sucked. The end. I never had that sort of theater experience, and I didn't ever experience any of that media hype around them. But there, even it probably would have been like 1988 or something when I first saw them.
Did you ever get to see them on the big screen?
The special editions.
You saw those in
the theater, the re-releases, yeah. But it seems like they were always still, even in the late 80s, early 90s, before the special editions ramped up. Star Wars was always sort of tangentially there. You know, like people never like kind of forgot about it.
Did you, if I might ask, how many times did you see the movies on like the small screen, the TV screen, before you saw them on the big screen?
I don't know.
Multiple times?
I mean,
Many times?
those were movies that by the time the special editions came out, like, I could recite this entire movie from
So when you saw them on
heart.
the big screen, how did that impact you? Did they still have kind of that? Did you still have kind of a visceral impact for the movies when you saw them the first time on the big screen?
No, I mean, it was great just being able to have that experience of seeing them, which, that's sort of probably what compelled me to see the special editions. And because that was,
I agree. Because this first chance for like I said, I didn't see any of them in the theater,
right?
Even though I was around for Return of the Jedi when it was, but I didn't see it in the theater. I think the movies do. I think they are kind of a better, like a big screen experience, just because of the subject matter.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question is I remember for a number of years I'd seen Lawrence of Arabia like maybe 4 or 5 times on a television screen, and then they had a special recut director's cut version, and I think it was '89, and I went to see that. So I'd already seen the movie like 4 or 5 times, and I'm watching it on the big screen. I'm like, I was just still blown away. I was still amazed. Like, wow, this is just an amazing movie to see on the big screen. That's why I was asking that question.
Well, I mean, even just the opening sequence of A New Hope, obviously on the big screen, is a lot more probably overpowering.
Oh, with the small ship and the massive Star Destroyer.
I mean, on TV. I mean, just on TV, and people. Again, the kids, man, but we had tiny ass TVs forever.
Hey, you guys haven't lived till you've been sitting in the big screen theater in Dolby stereo, hearing that Star Destroyer come from the top of the screen.
Plus, you probably would have seen them full. They wouldn't have been widescreen format, right? Those movies when you first saw them.
Oh, they wouldn't have been. No, probably not. I mean, I'm sure I had some. There were some. I remember having one of the remastered THX like trilogy packs, the VHS tapes where they were widescreen.
Yes, they did that.
But I mean, the first time I properly got to see them, like that was in the theater, with the special editions. That was before when I was too young and stupid to realize that the changes were dumb. So I enjoyed them.
Yeah, but I honestly think seeing those in the theater made me a Star Wars fan. Being able to see those in the theater. Where it was before, I was like, these are okay, but then actually seeing.
I loved them well before that.
Oh,
it's just
don't get me
cool
wrong.
to finally see, like, here's how it looks on the big screen.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it was. I mean, I remember enjoying watching them, but what I mean is, you got to see how they were intended to be seen.
Yeah.
Did everybody enjoy the special editions in the theater?
Well, I think at the time, it was before we maybe. I would have been like 17 or whatever when they came out in the theater, the special editions. It was I think before at least I was able to formulate like, no, these changes suck. I was like, oh, cool, they added more stuff into Tatooine. That's rad.
I think that was my thought
about it.
I think that was my thought. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me see.
Oh, cool, we got to see Jabba the Hutt. Like, oh, that's not going to hold up in 5 years.
Well, I didn't even think that. I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I didn't mind some of the changes in Empire or
some
Return.
Of them when they like clean up the
I think
line.
Empire's the best one
because you can say that he was cleaning up the film. He was getting rid of the black outlines on the special
there were
effects.
some things,
but Star Wars does not hold up. The changes he made are terrible. And the thing about Lucas is like if you look at the first 3 movies, he's in love with eye candy. He just puts so much on the screen that it takes away, it overpowers the actors. And he takes a film like Star Wars and just puts so much stuff into it that it overpowers that movie.
Right.
So that was my complaint against those. But my biggest complaint is, I've always felt, sorry to step on your line there, Ryan, but my biggest complaint was that he was adamant that you couldn't see the original movies again.
Yeah.
Right? That this is my movie.
The
This
man
is what you're
who
gonna
argued
get.
against the colorization of Citizen Kane is like, you can't. They're my movies.
Yeah. That was he went before Congress in 1988 and complained about it. He went to see. He basically said that people who do this are barbarians. That was his quote from that from Congress. So that's
Genghis
my biggest
Khan
complaint.
himself.
Yeah, it's like, hey, fine, you want to change your movies, I'm cool with it, but just have the originals out there and then have your versions out there and put them together and let people have at it.
One day.
I remember sitting for that Star Wars special edition at the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood, front row, which was way too close at that theater, but that's how excited I was. And the moment when Han steps on Jabba's tail and he goes, whoa, and his eyes bug out, I went, uh-oh. Because this was the first we'd heard from Lucas in, since Jedi. This was really
was
George
it, yeah.
Lucas's first new work, in a way.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Hold on. The only good thing to come out of those remasters was we actually saw Womp Rats.
That was informative.
All right, so
Thank you, Brock.
What's your order?
Short but pointless.
What's your order?
What's your order?
Well, hold on. I haven't even gotten into the prequels yet.
Oh, yeah.
Do we really need to?
Do you know
Of
what
course, everyone's got the
my
prequels.
everlasting memory of the prequels is? Is going to buy toys at Toys R Us with Ryan and getting jaywalking tickets.
Yeah. That was a
That was
great
great.
day. That was
Yeah.
a great day.
No, those were bad. You know, I remember episode 1, like we walked out of being, you know, we were sort of like, that was good, right?
Yeah, again,
that was Star Wars, so it was good, right? Like we were sort of had to like fool ourselves.
Again, for
And
me,
then
it
it
wasn't
dawned on
fooling. It
us.
was more like, oh, he's a kid. The second one will be better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think I had the same thing.
Yeah, and then at the end of the second one, we went, well, maybe the third one will be better.
No. After the second one, I was like, I don't like the direction. This
Well, they
is
can't
going.
fuck it up 3 times.
Well,
No,
I say.
I had a feeling these were.
Well, then Lucas's
You had a
comeback
bad feeling
to all
about
the
that?
complainers was, well, these were always children's movies,
No.
and you're looking at them with adult eyes. They weren't children's movies.
No.
They were all ages movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Pixar.
There's a difference. Yeah.
well, that's how he defends certainly the prequels. But the prequel, the first episode 1 scroll opens with like, oh, the Trade Federation's routes are in dispute with the local systems.
Well,
like
these
that's
are-
not a
you're
kid's
talking
movie.
about it-
Well, how about Star Wars, where he changes the course, the infamous Han Solo, you have Greedo shoots first. He changed that because of, like you said, Kevin,
Too
that
mean.
he's like,
Too
I don't want
mean.
kids to see this. But then what about the scene where they're frying Luke's aunt and uncle and you have the burned hand?
Well, that's what I mean.
Is that more terrifying or less terrifying?
Yeah, the classic children's film where they cut off a man's arms and
Yes.
legs
Right.
and throw him into a volcano.
Or no, worse, just leave him to die.
Yeah.
Throw him out would have been mercy compared to what he did. The way I would say to improve the prequel trilogy, discard the Phantom Menace, make Attack of the Clones Episode 1,
Sure.
Sith 2, and then a third movie that wasn't ever made.
I could see that. Do something different.
There's no reason to start it with him as a small child.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, I think
that
we're all agreed on that.
for sure. Yeah. And we'll talk about episode 7, but I think
Yeah. episode
episode 7 is totally a reaction to like, oh, remember how he was this whiny kid? We're going to show you how that's done right.
Yeah.
You know, but
So what's your order?
Empire,
Yep.
and I mean, if you hold a gun to my head, I'm going to put Jedi before episode 4. But really, I mean, they sort of stand parallel to each other.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, Jedi's my favorite," whatever. Like any episode 4 being the best, that's fine. Like, there's no wrong order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all excellent. Like Empire is just the one I think with the most stuff going on.
Yeah.
Just
And you gotta love
between
Yoda.
the characters.
Yeah, Yoda. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoda's great.
Yeah. 5, 6, 4.
Inspired a Weird Al song.
No wrong answer there is.
All right, we're going to pause here for a second, and then we'll be back for some Episode 7 talk. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is a great place to turn off the podcast.
Have we not spoiled anything yet?
I don't think we have.
Ooh,
No.
there's going to be some
Yeah,
spoilers.
Yeah, so...
Wow, spoilers.
so
Gonna have to drag your cursor over that to see the spoilers. You got to be careful.
we'll see everyone in just a minute. Hello, and we are back. If you have not seen Star Wars Episode 7, and you love spoilers, I guess you can keep listening. But otherwise, turn off this podcast. Or keep listening if you've seen Episode 7, Star Wars, The Force. What is it? The Force Awakens? Is that what it's called?
Awakens.
Okay, that sounds right.
We were just taking a nap.
Yeah. It's happening, everyone. We're back. We have a billion people here. A crap load of people that are all going to say their names here in some form of order. Let's start on this side. Who do we have returning to the podcast?
Ryan Scott.
Next to him.
Brian Ellison.
Chris Noyes.
Charlie West.
Brock Sager.
Adam Fitch.
And who else we got? We got a few people standing in the back, but we're going to have them bring their voice in too. Kevin, come say your name to this microphone.
Kevin Sharp.
And then Lane, come say your name also in this microphone.
Dude, are we going to repeat their names all the time?
No, just so everyone remembers what voices sound like, because we just took a break, and you heard some awesome jizz. You heard some awesome jizz?
What the?
Yeah.
Did you play in the middle of the break?
I played some jizz.
Yeah.
What is this?
You gotta wipe those microphones down.
You've got a bunch of jizz in your ear, and now you're going to listen to us talk about episode 7.
You forgot about Toby. Everybody knows what his voice sounds like.
Toby's being weird. I don't know. Toby's something has awoken inside of Toby. He's like not podcasting anymore. So
it's the dark side.
Yeah. Toby's here too. If Toby wants to jump in, he could say hello as well. So anyway, on roughly 24 hours ago, we were about to exit The Force Awakens. But yes, this was on Thursday. I almost said July. Thursday, December 17th, 2015. It opened in the United States. Although today's the Friday as we're recording, it's the more traditional day for Star Wars Episode 7: The Force Awakens, with an all-star studded cast of old people that were in the other movies. And I lost my my Force Awakens IMDb page.
You suck. What were you? Were you going to recite the cast list?
Harrison
Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Anthony Daniels, and Max von Sydow. I think those were the first build.
That is the correct IMDb order, except you missed Lupita
Nyong'o
and Andy Serkis.
Oh yeah, those people, the CGI people,
and Domhnall Gleeson, exactly.
Oh yeah, him. Tarkin.
People that worked on that movie.
Tarkin Jr.
Of course, you also had Gwendolyn Christie, the wonderful Captain Phasma, who severely underused. And don't forget Simon Pegg was also in this movie, and tons of other people. But we'll get to that in a minute.
There's a bunch of Lost people.
Everyone from Lost was in this
Miles.
movie. Yeah.
And the pilot of the plane.
Matt Parkman from.
He was the pilot of the Lost plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg Grunberg.
So,
J.J. Abrams' best pal.
Dude, so went to shit. I'm sorry. That was completely.
So we are going to, since we have way too many people here, we are going to very orderly say our quick thoughts on the movie, maybe a favorite scene, and then give it a good rating because we love ratings and rankings. And then, of course, everyone's feel free to just jump in with, general thoughts as people go along.
This is going to be a train wreck.
It's going to be a train wreck. It's amazing. Let's start with Ryan Scott.
It's like that movie, Trainwreck.
Back away from the mic. You're super loud.
Whoa.
Hey,
man, this is how far I always am from the mic. You're just not on the Geekbox level.
He's just not used to having the headphones.
I know.
That is weird. I don't have headphones on. It's strange.
Star Wars. Are you so tired of all these Star Wars?
No, I'm not, for once. I love them. I love all the Star Wars.
Excellent.
This movie was awesome. I mean, they fixed Star Wars.
You saw it twice, too.
Yeah,
already.
I saw it with you guys, opening night, 7 o'clock. And then we had tickets for a 10 a.m. showing on Friday.
Yeah.
So we saw it 12 hours between showings, we
Slept.
We slept most of that time, yeah. And then we saw Star Wars again.
Nice.
And it was still awesome the second time. And you notice, if you saw it once, go see it again, because there's a lot of little details that we picked up on that second time, that like important things that we sort of missed, sort of looking at the big picture. Little subtle things.
I should also say, Ryan Scott, Adam Fitch, and Chris Noyes, you guys will have much more detailed I think, opinions on this on next week's episode of the Geek Box as well.
It's going to be all Star Wars.
Which you will not be on.
I will not be here, which is part of the reason I'm doing this.
Wait, do I have to stay for that?
Yeah, you were Marshall. Yeah, sure.
Marshall could I?
Yeah, you figure it out.
Yeah.
But obviously, feel free, because maybe there'll be some different crowds here. So feel free to, continue to talk. Sorry.
This is a cool movie. I liked it, and it was awesome.
Favorite scene?
Yeah, what's your favorite scene? Do you have one?
Do I have a favorite scene? Oh, that's hard. That's hard to pick. I don't know. There are so many good things that stood out. Like we saw a lot of this in the trailer, but there were so many parts where they were very, very surgical about just evoking those same emotions and framing those scenes exactly almost the same way as they did in the first movies. You see the crashed Star Destroyer and the tiny little ship, and the very first shot of the movie after the crawl, you see the Star Destroyer like that big, the way they did in New Hope, but you see it from overhead, and there's a lot of scenes like that are just like.
No, I think we're going to get into this as
they're just reframed.
As some people here, I think are going to have opinions, but. Was it too much?
So, no, I don't think it was. As far as look, I enjoyed all the nods and like little winks here and there. And there are two ways to do these kinds of nods, and both are expertly demonstrated in the same scene in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. At the beginning of that movie,
Are we actually bringing up that garbage?
at the beginning of the movie, they open those warehouse doors, and you see this is the warehouse where the Ark is. And it's just like, I know that. You don't have to explain that to me. There's just all the promise of what that means. Like, ooh, we're in the warehouse. That's awesome. Chills down my spine. And then they're like, look, there's the Ark in the box. Do you see it? There's the Ark. We got the Ark in there. And that, like, no, you went too far with that nod. You ruined it. It was great, and you ruined it. And Star Wars, The Force Awakens, they went just far enough. They didn't show me the Ark, but they showed me the warehouse. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of little, and there were a lot of things that were sort of like in context too, like when they run into Han Solo, when they board the Millennium, when they're running away from the explosion, and they're like, we got to get to that ship. Look, what about that one? That's garbage. And then they're like, the garbage will have to do. And then it's the Falcon, right?
They should have called it a piece of junk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been too on the nose, though, right?
Yeah,
It's
you're
not the
right.
problem.
But then they meet up with Han, and he's like, "Tell him Han Solo stole the Millennium Falcon back for good." And she's like, "This is the Millennium Falcon. This is the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 14 parsecs." And he's like, 12.
Wow.
There was like a context for her sort of knowing that and being in awe of it, like in sort of the fiction of the universe and all that. So it wasn't just it didn't just exist to be like, remember this?
If I may,
and there's a lot of that.
If I may interrupt, I think that was the first time our crowd, like when Han and Chewie first appeared on the screen. Everyone applauded.
Oh yeah.
And we were like, "Oh my God, they're back! Oh my God!" And so I think we as the audience were in awe, just as the characters. So I think we could both. We were kind of saying the same things that she was saying.
Right.
It was surprising because that was actually the first time, other than Star Wars showing up on the screen with the fanfare. That was the first time everyone, I think, kind of went nuts in the theater, which I was actually very surprised at. There were only 2 or 3 times that happened. Which
It was a good crowd, but it wasn't an obnoxious crowd. I hate when they're hollering and yelling at everything. Like, I didn't want that,
Well, there's certain like when the Millennium Falcon first pops up on the screen, like people applauded. There are like little moments where it's like, yes, this is back.
I think what it was you could also tell when like they were using humor in it. Like some people laughed more at one thing, some people didn't laugh at another thing. Right? You had kind of a varied kind of group that, at least for the show that we went to. When they were,
I think the jokes. I think the
jokes were there, but you could tell like people laughed at different points and stuff like that, and other people didn't.
As people are known to do, humor.
Comedy is not an exact science.
No,
but I felt like
it's hard.
I probably have to watch it a couple more times.
References that we're going to have in this podcast.
No, that's why I said comedy's hard. Comedy's hard to do.
I think I think that this is probably a movie that you could go into having never seen the original trilogy and still get it and enjoy it.
That's my question for the long term.
I kind of think
the scrawl, the opening crawl of the recap basically does a good job of you don't really need to know much. Luke's disappeared. This guy's disappeared. This evil First Order is hunting him down, and people are trying to find him. I mean,
I was reading that scroll when it happened, and in my mind, I was comparing it to the scroll of the first of episode 1. And
so the difference is in the beginning of episode 1, the crawl is like, well, the trade routes and the galactic government don't know how to tax the. And the first words of the Force Awakens crawl were Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly. No, but that's what I mean. It was very clear and concise, and it got you excited. It's like it was like talking about the First Order, and in all caps, and so it's like
Trade Federation and all.
No, it wasn't. No.
Well, it turns out the tax rate raised by 9% this year, and now the aliens have put up a
What I mean
wall.
is, I read all that stuff, and I'm like, okay, now I know what's going on in the movie. Let's get it started.
Right.
So Ryan Scott, why don't you give us a quick rate it
Look, our rating scale. What is our rating scale?
The rating scale is
Maybe
whatever. Everyone
self-
can have a
yeah.
different rating scale. What's your rating scale? 19 force bananas
give it-
over 7.
I give it. I don't know. I'm bad at this. I'll
How do
hedge.
you compare it to the original 3?
I give this 2 Gabrielle Anwars.
Oh, there you go.
Which you'll have to listen to the Geek Box to remember that old joke.
Bring it
That's
back.
like a 9 out of 10.
Bringing it back.
Yeah,
What do you think compared to the original? Where's the stack? Or is it too soon?
I think it's too soon to really like. I have to see it a few times to really like. The thing about this movie, it's good. They play it a little bit safe in terms of like they took all of the beats of A New Hope and just put them in a box and shook it and took them out and were like, let's just put it in this different order.
A little.
But in a good way.
Yeah.
But there's things where you're like, oh, there's the cantina scene. Oh, they've just made another Tales from Jabba's Palace short story book right there. And here's where they blow up the Death Star, and here's the new Wedge Antilles, and here's
Han's Ben and
Han is the new Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we have
Right.
our new Tarkin, and we have our new Emperor, and we have our
Right.
new Vader, and we have all of that. But it's not done in some creatively bankrupt way.
Sorry to interrupt. But
it's what you do.
But I think the great thing is all of the characters have their own personalities, though they aren't one for one. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like Kylo Ren, which has taken me forever to memorize his name. He's
Pass the mic to Brian. No, take the other one. Take Ryan's. That's for Charlie and them. There you go.
He can
Awesome.
edit.
That's fine. I probably won't edit this out. Keep talking. My hand motion. I need the force to move microphones between people.
No, you just need to write it down and then just hold up the sign.
Oh well. Anyway, what I mean is, Kylo Ren is not a one for one for Darth Vader. Kylo Ren is actually very unsure of himself, whereas Darth Vader was.
He's like Anakin, not Darth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's very. He comes across as. I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons he wears the mask. Is he's trying to hide his true self. And the same thing with Rey and Finn. I mean, Finn is kind of like a Luke character, but no,
not really, not exactly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I really liked is they you are saying they hit the beats, but I really like the fact that the characters are.
Well, I think they
new.
switched them up, right? I mean, you have Han Solo, but it's another.
Right.
It's
It's kind of a mix.
It's Poe. It's Poe and Rey. Is Han?
Well, they took the personality traits of all those characters and just sort of redistributed them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, you have here is the chosen one. Here is the sort of roguish person who is on the run, and here is the very important resistance person on a secret mission. Like, you have that from a basic that basic breakdown of their roles, but their
And
personalities.
don't forget, you got the droid.
And you have the best character. Yes.
But the other thing is, I think, and I bring this up a few times, one of the things in the Red Letter media critiques they bring up is in the prequels how utterly devoid of character. Like you can't what is Queen Amidala's personality?
Yeah, there's not one.
But I can already tell you what Finn's personality is,
sure.
what Kylo Ren's personality is, what Rey's personality is. Easily.
Well, they're not cartoony, but they're distinct. Which they're not just bland.
I don't think they're cartoony at all. In fact, I think they
that's what I
talk
said.
actually like real people. Like Finn is fucking scared.
Well, like I said, they're not cartoony. Yeah. They are, but they are distinct from each other. Yeah, Brian. To move on here, let's.
Okay, my quick thoughts, just to jump on something that the guy said moments ago. I actually don't think Han Solo is Obi-Wan. I think Luke is Obi-Wan.
Well,
in that sense,
Han's death is and there's the spoiler, of course.
Yes,
that's
true.
what I meant. Like you hit the death of Obi-Wan beat, but with Han Solo, right?
Well, he's the guy who shows up and is like, the Force, it's important, and you guys got to learn it, and then he gets himself killed trying to parlay with the bad guy.
You know, what's funny is it's funny that Han is the one that does that actually.
Well,
but that's where the beats come in, right?
Right.
Because you guys mentioned about how do you need to see the episodes 4, 5, and 6 if you just jumped into episode 7, would you be lost? And no, because when you think about it, episode 4, they're searching for this desert rat by the name of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we don't know his backstory. We don't know what's going on. When we see him, we just know he's just kind of this wizened old man who's going to...
A wizard.
Yes, exactly. So in this movie, we're looking for Luke Skywalker. We don't... If you didn't see these other movies, knew nothing about the Star Wars universe, you would...
what planet do you live on where you don't know something about Star Wars?
But the thing...
People were born after us.
Yes,
true.
of course. And there are many people who probably don't know. It's not everybody is in the same category we are when it comes to pop culture, but that's just a rhetorical statement in the sense, like, if you don't know, then you could watch this movie for the first time and not be lost, I don't think. But some of the quick thoughts to come back and to kind of speed things up. My first quick thought about it was, as I said earlier, that this is the kind of movie you get when George Lucas is not involved. I also thought that when you look at all the movies with the Skywalker bloodline, all the men are kind of whiny in a way where Rey is not. She pretty much takes charge, and I liked her kick-ass attitude.
So that's the assumption that Rey is a Skywalker.
I'm going to go with that assumption. Yeah,
I think that's
a given.
I don't think that's a spoil. I just think it's
I mean, they've telegraphed that all the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Am I the only one that's different and thinks she's actually Han and Leia's daughter? Because I truly think
I would
that.
think so.
Because
yes.
I think it's a brother-sister thing this time around.
Go ahead.
No.
Share them,
Okay. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think that's his daughter.
You don't think it's Luke that took the daughter and he's the only one that knows the truth, and Han and Leia just think she's dead?
I can't speak to that, but I would believe that it's Luke's daughter before I believe it's Han and Leia's daughter.
Your thought, Toby, is
you're complicating it too much.
Well, no. I think I think he's potentially right, because I think being Luke's daughter is what we all think. So that would be the twist. That would be the Vader twist, is that Kylo Ren that Ben Solo.
Yeah.
But there's no precedent in the movie to make you think that they had a daughter that they don't know about.
They just said,
No, I think they had the daughter, but I think they believe she's dead or gone. That's what I think of it. I could be completely wrong.
Because they show her.
That's just the way I see it.
Like, she's being taken from her parents, or her parents are leaving her.
She's being left. I don't think she's being taken.
I think it's Luke that did that.
There's a part where when they arrive on the planet where they go to meet Maz Kanata, and Han and Rey are standing there, and he's like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Rey." And you see, like, just in his face, he's like, and then he's like, "You want to come work on the Falcon?" Yeah. Just immediately, like, he knows something, and his facial expression plays to that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's got to turn out to be, it's going to be Luke's daughter, and it's going to come down to her versus Kylo Ren, with her giving a speech where she's like, I have as much of your grandfather in me as of our grandfather in me as you do.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's what it'll come down to.
I guess my thought on this is I don't want that to be the case, because the whole idea of the Force is it doesn't just flow along a single family tree. It pops up all over the place.
But this is a Skywalker story. They've all been Skywalker stories.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The thread.
But that's where going into additional episodes and keeping this open-ended, they don't have to always tell a story of a Skywalker Jedi.
True, but I think the movies will.
It's a 9-part saga.
Yeah, sure. You have Anakin, Luke, and now Rey. That's the history, right?
Ryan Scott, you said that because watching it again, you noticed at the end of the movie that Luke is standing over.
He is clearly standing over a grave marker.
Mara Jade's grave.
Yeah. Well,
Mara Jade.
That would be cool if they name checked her. Sure.
No, it wouldn't.
You don't know.
Well, okay. Who did he fuck to get
Mara Jade?
Hey.
Wait, do you swear on the podcast?
Sure,
yes,
sure.
absolutely.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
No, I think it's awesome that you do. So keep going.
No, he in the expanded universe, which is obviously now very non-canon. His wife was Mara Jade.
Did she have force powers?
Yeah, she was the Emperor's right hand. Yeah.
Well, I don't know this stuff.
She was the Emperor's personal assassin, right?
Oh, okay, that's
and
interesting.
He kind of brought her over to the light and whatnot. But obviously, like their kids and all that. It's completely that has nothing to do with what we're seeing in the movie now. But that's one of those elements that it's like it would be nice if they just name checked this person to be like, they're canon in our way now.
Talking about redirection, when we first saw Poe, and he fucking can fly anything.
Yeah.
And he's fucking flying the TIE fighter.
Now he's really swearing.
Well, because I got excited.
Yeah.
Because I was
Keep
like,
going.
Let the expletives fly.
I turned to my wife and I said, I bet you that is Han's son. It has to be because of how he's such a good pilot and all this stuff and it turned out it was a little bit of misdirection.
I think it's funny that we're all thinking completely different things because I was actually really happy that he was not a Skywalker. Because I like the fact that there's a new guy.
What if he's Wedge Antilles' son?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
There's been
the best pilot in the Rebellion.
But what if he's Luke's?
I don't think everybody has to be everybody's kid. I don't think Finn and Poe Dameron are going to turn out to be like, whoa, it's Lando's kid, and this one is Boba Fett's kid, and this one over here, they don't have to do that.
Finn is Lando's kid, yeah.
4 years from now, we're going to look back at this podcast. We're like, oh my god, they were all related. What were we thinking? Well, let's get back, Brian. Give us a favorite.
JJ was a big fan of No Man's Sky.
I think Finn is Boba Fett's kid, right?
That's what he just said. Give us a favorite scene.
Yeah. So basically, just quickly, I really like this movie quite a bit. I will see it again I'll use a typical 4-star rating. I give it 3.5 stars. Lots of things to enjoy about it. In the first or the episodes 4, 5, and 6, my favorite character was Darth Vader. In the first episodes 1, 2, and 3, my favorite character was Darth Maul. But here in this movie, Rey's my favorite character. I like her quite a bit. She's a strong character. There's lots of good things they do with her. My favorite scene in the movie is when Rey's confronting Kylo Ren, and the lightsabers in the snow, and they're both vying for it with the Force, trying to see who it goes to, and whoop, it goes to Rey.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That's a great scene.
And generally, lightsaber fight in this movie, like they're back to that sort of just savage, not a ballet dance,
right? Not choreographed ballet.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because the one thing about this movie I thought was interesting was it's not overly violent, but things are violent when you see people shot.
Yeah,
and
it
killed.
didn't feel like a video game for once.
No, I mean the Star Wars, for as much as everybody loved it, was a really rather antiseptic kind of movie that just. It's very clean, very clean.
When they kill a stormtrooper in the old ones, it's like, okay, he kind of just falls down. When they hit a stormtrooper, they like kind of get blown up and they fly and they see some damage, and there's collateral damage and shit blows up.
And the lightsaber duel is a tough one. Like it looks like a realistic thing. The only problem that I have,
Kylo Ren gets sliced in the face. Finn gets shoved in the back. Like
the thing with that fight that I really liked at the end in the snow in the forest is when they were swinging around wildly, they were cutting down the trees,
like knocking down stuff.
Like they would cut through a tree and it would fall down. And I remember thinking as I'm watching this, going, this is so infinitely better than the Obi-Wan Anakin fight where they're in the lava river and it's just like, my god, this is so bad.
Drags.
Or any of the Yoda fights. I'm just like, God, these are so bad. But this one felt real.
Yeah.
It felt like, he had training, but he was
very raw.
But he was very raw.
Yeah.
And she was just naturally coming to this, but she wasn't, she was learning as she was going, but she had this natural kind of ability.
Like Ryan Scott, I don't mind the beats that they followed in the movie as they did with Episode 4. The only thing I kind of questioned a little bit was that she was very good with that lightsaber at the end, and I just thought maybe she can bluff her way through it, but she was pretty good.
Well,
I don't know how.
I think that was kind of because at the beginning of that fight, she's not the best with it. She does get knocked down and beat and stuff like that. But I think what it is it's kind of going back to, like you said, the jumbling up of what happened. In that if you look at how Luke learns in the first film, and he's got that blast, he's watching it and the thing shoots him, and he's like, and then he's like, I can't see with the blast shield down, and he kind of has this natural sort of feeling.
But she's pretty. She's pretty good before she closes her eyes and does use the Force. Right?
Yeah.
She's pretty good with that lightsaber, and then she got better with the lightsaber.
Well, that's the other thing
is
you guys are also forgetting. She was good with that staff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
That's the thing is that she was also really good with that staff, because Finn goes to help her out,
and she's like,
the living shit out of those guys.
Every time Finn's like, I got to save her. Like, nobody ever has to rescue her in this movie.
That's what I like about that fight is that there's a little bit of in-movie backstory for why she can be so good and with that lightsaber at the end, because she fucking knows how to use that staff.
There's a learning curve with the weapon, right? Because you're holding a lightsaber. I mean, the first thing that Luke does is like point it at himself, right? She's just like kind of like trying to get it, and then by the end of that, she has this fluid, motion where she slices him, across the face and gives him the scar, which we're like, yes, deform their face.
But a good martial artist will tell you that there's a difference between using a katana and a staff. I mean, they are different weapons. I mean, you can naturally take to one more so than the other. But they are different weapons. But your point's a good one. I mean, maybe she had some background in being able to use that. But against a guy who's supposed to be adept at what he's doing, she held herself up really well.
I think the thing is with him is he's had training, but we saw it with his... I can't believe I'm using this reference. With his Superboy Prime outbursts of rage.
I saw one review refer to that as him just... being a whiny teenager and ripping up his Duran Duran posters.
Pretty much. I liked that about the character.
Well, you get the feeling that when he's like just enraged, he's just this leaky faucet.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like that control that Vader did.
I think for me, part of what bothered me, like, yes, how good Rey was with sort of the lightsaber to hold her own against somebody who had some training bothered me, especially with the level of force adeptness they had already established in the movie that he had. Now, they did establish that he wasn't fully finished his training or anything, but he should have been able to dominate a little bit more if he wasn't already injured. But when Finn was using the lightsaber and actually scoring some hits, that bothered me a lot more.
Yeah, I didn't like that part because, again, this, like Charlie said, this is a Finn. He had just came up with his name like 2 days prior. He's been trained as a stormtrooper.
He made the first big choice in his life, like at the beginning of the movie,
and he works in sanitation.
He says he's good with a blaster,
which, by the way, was probably one of the awesomest lines. Do you have a trash compactor around here?
But yeah, I mean, like, this dude picks up a lightsaber and actually holds his own.
Yeah, I didn't. That's a bit.
Yeah. My friends before the movie were like, how many limbs do we think are going to get cut off in this movie? And as soon as he started fighting, I was like, well, there goes at least one. But, I mean, nothing happened. So that was a little...
Let's wrap this up, and Chris, let's move on, because we're gonna run way long. But keep going.
And the fact that basically he had a previous lightsaber battle that he had lost against a stormtrooper...
Yeah.
did not make me believe it any shape or form that he should have been able to hold his own even remotely against Ren.
Well, we'll see.
Stimpy, maybe. But
okay, hey, Chris, what's your thoughts?
So I liked it.
Darth Chris. That's how much of a fan you are.
My Twitter handle.
You have the ugly Vader sweater on, Christmas sweater.
Yeah, which I won.
Actually, it's a pretty cool sweater.
I won our ugly sweater contest today at work, and it's not ugly, so I don't know why.
I would have voted for it.
Apparently, everyone else did. I liked it. I walked out of the theater, and my first thought was, earlier I said my original ranking was 5, 6, 4. Right now, I'm ranking it 4, tied with 4. I want to go see it again this weekend. Like Ryan Scott, I'll probably have to see it a few more times. But no, I liked it. Couple of things, like, Finn with the lightsaber, that kind of bugged me. When the First Order were attacking the 1,000-year-old bar or whatever, Poe fucking destroys 8 ships in one giant slalom run. I'm like, no, come on, he can be good, but not that good, really. But again, it's nitpicking. So I mean, I liked it. Probably my favorite scenes were actually the comedy beats.
It was a funny movie. Everyone agrees 3PO's introduction was the greatest scene in the movie, correct? Was that not the funniest scene?
That might be, yeah.
You might not recognize me because of my red arm.
That was, I laughed so hard. That was so funny.
The timing of it. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, here's this heartfelt, oh, hello.
And he just pops in from the side.
I didn't even, again, like I said, I've been on lockdown, so I didn't know who the fuck was in this movie. So when he popped up, I was like, yes, my favorite gay robot.
The banter between Rey and Han and in and around the Falcon was great. When they are on the First Order Death Star planet, and he's trying to find Rey to save her, and Han sees her through the window on the other side, and he's like nodding, and Finn's like, "What the hell are you doing? What does that mean?"
Well, also the banter between Han and Chewie.
Yeah, Han and
also
Chewie
excellent.
was excellent.
Seeing Han shoot the what is it, the bolo blaster? What is it?
The crossbow.
What does he call it?
Bowcaster.
Bowcaster. Yeah.
You know what?
This
This is my biggest problem. I find it hard to believe that in like the 40 years or whatever that they've been rolling around, that he's never had a chance to pick up the bowcaster and shoot it.
I have my own problem with that being in the EU. It's too heavy for anyone but a Wookiee to use. So
it's not canon.
I know it's not canon anymore. But no, yeah, I think that was one of the main things missing from the prequels was some like light humor.
Good humor.
I'm
you
gonna
didn't
say,
like Jar Jar?
I'm gonna say I think George Lucas tried that with Jar Jar, and it just is terrible. But he kind of stuck with it, and unfortunately, it never clicked. And 2 and 3 did have a darker and darker tone to it, but there was always little light scenes in 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, absolutely.
And they bring it back in several instances in 7, which I loved.
So, Chris, you don't buy into the Darth Jar Jar theory, eh?
No, like Ryan Higgins, and I guess like Adam, I avoided as much news as possible about this movie. So I'd never seen the poster. I didn't see any trailer. I only saw the teaser last year. I had no idea who characters were, character names.
We got some action figure in, and I'm like, just like it looks like Deadpool with like a circle on his face. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And then the movie comes up, and it's like, oh, it's some random like Irish hitman. That's in like 30 seconds of the movie.
Oh,
when they're fighting the Marlboros from Final Fantasy. Yeah.
Just a quick thing. The Darth Jar Jar theory is that Jar Jar is actually not an idiot. That he's actually a Darth. Or Darth
drunken master Sith.
Yes, exactly, and so he's behind all the shenanigans in the first 3 movies.
What I told my wife, because Adam Driver plays Kylo Ren, he's kind of a weird looking dude, and when I went to my wife and I was like, "You want to know something about Episode 7?" And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "There's a theory going around that Jar Jar is he's a Sith Lord," and it turns out that's going to be the case. And they managed to. They didn't have to CGI him because they just cast Adam Driver.
Well, when he pulled off his helmet, and I saw like that black hair, I was instantly like, is that fucking Kit Harington?
That's it. So I turned to Leanne and I'm like, is Jon Snow a Sith Lord? Like, what the fuck?
And then the helmet fully comes off, and I'm like, oh, dude, no, this dude's ears are huge.
It looked like, I don't know the actor. He looked like Snape to me.
Yeah,
he
did.
Like
he
a young
like
Adam
Driver.
Yeah.
He had a bigger nose.
If you made it through episode of Girls and you didn't commit suicide, you'd know Adam Driver. So.
Yeah. You know nothing, Kylo Ren. You know nothing.
So yeah, I liked it, and like probably everyone else, I'm gonna have to see it a few more times. But
Charlie, darling,
what's your rating?
My rating is tied with episode 4,
Yeah.
so
okay.
I guess 3 out of 7, top 3.
Yeah.
3 out of
Tied
7.
for third.
Oh, not 3 out of 7 stars.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Charlie, what are you thinking?
But it works.
He actually gives the first 3
So
spot
I'm
on
gonna-
the scale. No, my scale's off.
So I'm going to start with my rating. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I had minor nitpicks and gripes, which I always do with movies that I love. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
I've already talked about the main things that bothered me, but my favorite scene of the movie, hands down, was actually when they revealed the Millennium Falcon, because for the most part, all the beats, like when Han shows up, I already knew that's basically where he was going to show up, just because in terms of the beats of the movie, that's where it made sense for him to show up. So most everything else kind of just felt like I had a general sense of where the story was going to go and all that, just based on the way everything was being set up. But the Millennium Falcon reveal, like, my brain didn't go there at all. So that was like the
When she said,
return.
when she said, "Oh, that piece of junk," I thought she was talking about her little red thing at
that's
first.
what I did too.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
I'm sure that was by design. I'm sure they.
And like for me, that was like the one that really caught me off guard. It was sort of it's the cool scene in something where like somebody you didn't expect to be returning just suddenly shows up. And one of the negative sort of things about going into this movie is they announced the returning characters so early on that like, it's like going into this movie. I'm like, okay, I know we're going to see Luke eventually. I know we're going to see Han. I know we're going to see like.
Well, now we know why Luke was not in any of the trailers, and people were getting mad. It's because he wasn't barely in the movie.
Exactly, but I think sort of like that the aspect of the fact that we knew he was going to be in it at all kind of set up that expectation of okay, they've hit this, and part of the way through the movie because I knew he was going to be in it. I knew exactly how they were going to end the movie well before the end of the movie.
Oh, I think once they introduced the fact that Kylo Ren was Han Solo's son and Leia's son, you knew he wasn't going to make it out. And I know Ryan Scott, me and you talked about Chewie, the Falcon, and Han are gone.
Oh, so I figured they were going to blow up the Falcon with him in it.
Yeah, me too.
But when Han, when he's like, he's my son, I can reach out to him. That's it. You're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Yeah. Exactly. That entire time when they're planting the bombs, I'm just like, I can feel the tension growing in my body. I'm like, it's going to happen.
When he goes to Chewie and he's like, you go this way, I'll go this way. April reached over and just grabbed me because you were like, that's it.
Here's something that I actually thought was going to happen. When Kylo Ren had his saber, I thought he was actually going to light it up both ways and kill himself and Han Solo at the same time. I was like, well, maybe they will only keep him for the one movie. Because the way he was holding it, I'm like, if he ignites the side little beams, it'll kill them both. Because he was saying, like, I don't know how to end this. And then I'm like, oh, no, he just guts them. And, okay, he's just the new Vader.
Well, here's the question I asked earlier. So, is everybody good with Han Solo dying?
Absolutely.
No! How can you be good with that? That's the worst thing!
Of course it's terrible that Han Solo died. You know what's even worse than Han Solo dying?
Narratively, it's fine, but no, I don't want Han Solo to die.
I don't want to see 90-year-old Han Solo. I don't want to see
Shut up.
Han Solo in a wheelchair. Han Solo, to me, this is the transition. Killing Han is the end of the old Star Wars. It's the beginning. This is the beginning of the new Star Wars going forward.
Plus, Chewbacca survived.
And Chewbacca survived.
At first, I thought that he blew himself up with the bombs.
Yeah, me too. But I'm. Is it sad to see him go? Yes, but was it done well? Absolutely. And I'm perfectly fine with a character death if it's meaningful, if it works within the context of the plot, and if it really signals a change in the... Because obviously this isn't real, right? It's like Superman. If Superman dies, he's going to be back. Han Solo exists in that world where it's like, no, he is not Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker can come back as a Force ghost. Han, he's just a dude. That's it. And that's meaningful, and I'm okay with it because I think it worked within the context of the film.
What about now? Because the other question that raised for me was, I don't want to... If now that we know that Kylo Ren has crossed the threshold and like he's now gone to that dark side, do you want to see him redeemed in the later movies, or does he just has to stay on the dark side? I don't want to see him redeemed. I don't want to see him going down that path again.
No, because I think that's too close to Vader. I think he had the chance of redemption and he passed it up. Vader had the chance for redemption and took it. This was his Vader moment at the end of Jedi, and he didn't take it.
Yeah, I'm totally on Ryan's side on this one. Leave it. Yeah, just leave it. Actually, I personally wanted Kylo Ren to be so vicious that when he killed Han, that he just started smiling. Like I wanted him to have played Han all the way, that he planned it from like the whole I can't do this, I do want to be good, and then boom, he kills Han, and I wanted him to have that creepy little smile, but it works both ways though. But I do think he shouldn't be good. Not anymore.
Let's turn to Brock. What's your favorite scene?
Hey, can I tell you what the other best scene in the movie was real quick? Because I never said what my favorite scene was.
Oh.
But, this is the scene where they're at the base and Chewbacca's getting patched up, and the medic, she's like, oh, that sounds very scary. Yeah, you sound very brave.
That was so funny.
That was excellent.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I being of the age we are, we kind of we didn't get that experience of being an 8-year-old boy or child or whatever coming out of a Star Wars movie going, holy crap. I walked out of the theater feeling like an 8-year-old boy going, holy crap, right? Like, this was, like, done very, very well. Yeah, there was nitpicking stuff, like Charlie said. Like, there's little bits here and there. But, yeah, this is fantastic. Like, this is the first time, like, those references in old movies make sense. Like, oh, I've seen Star Wars 25 times and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, I could see myself going to see this almost every day if I wanted. But, yeah, it's just overall amazing. The beats you're talking about, they took the entire formula for A New Hope and did a very good job of scrambling it up just enough that it wasn't the same, even though certain characteristics of it were the same. Things evolve, right? We no longer have a Death Star, we have a Death Planet, right? It's like, because the bad guys are just going to keep doing the same shit they're always going to do, and they're just going to make it bigger, and hopefully it works more.
They've both worked really well. Like, they've all been destroyed, but they've all done a lot of fucking damage. Yeah. So just keep making them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
it's not like a super villain. And when Magneto tries to lift Manhattan and fails, it's like, why don't you just try that again? Like, you destroyed a lot of stuff. Yeah. Just keep doing it.
Well, and the thing is like, before it, the planet, the Death Star has to come into alignment with the thing to do it, but this planet can just sit there, right? It sits and it just shoots it out into space, and it's just like, holy shit, they can do it anywhere, right?
Like, you suck all the energy out of your sun, doesn't that hurt your planet?
Well,
how do they explain that?
It sounded like they were saying that they will eventually drain the sun, but then I think at that point they're like, well, I'll just build another one,
Or just move off the planet.
Just move it. Yeah.
I thought the giant gun was originally a giant engine, and I'm thinking again EU stuff.
They can drive the planet around.
The whole Carillion system are 5 planets that were super engineered with giant engines and maneuvered into place. And I'm like, are they going to move this planet around? Like, it could be, it could have a gun on the other side, but I was like, that's a giant engine.
Yeah, they could.
It's an engine/gun.
So what's your favorite part, and what's your ranking? How many BB-8
that's
thumbs up?
That's probably the best scene was the BB-8 thumbs up with the little flame coming out. I saw that scene, I was like, I am giving this movie BB-8 thumbs ups. It's 10 BB-8 thumbs up out of a 10 scale. This is
favorite scene and rating scale.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I think that they hit what they needed to hit with the film. It's again a great introduction to Star Wars if you're a kid.
Yeah.
It's like my kids, I'm like, I refuse to let them see 1, 2, and 3. Right? You can watch those after you've been ingrained in 4, 5, 6, and 7, or at least 7. Right? There is no way you're watching those 3 until you see these other ones, because you need to understand how horrible they are. So,
Mr. Sharp, you've been awfully quiet. Are we going to jump you because you thought this was the worst movie ever?
That was actually Mitch thought it was bad. Mitch, my buddy Mitch.
Oh, that guy who we all know.
He's not invited to the movies anymore.
Huh? Hey, Mitch.
I would say that it successfully wiped away the prequel trilogy, like the stain on the memories.
15 years gone in 2.5 hours. Yeah. That's what I said when I walked out of the theater.
No, I can tell you, it was wiped out when we saw all of those ships crashed on Jakku. I'm sitting there going, where's the movie of that? I want to see that. I know.
It's in the books.
So I know that people have said, I need to see this a few more times. I agree with that. After the movie last night, I would say I loved half of it. I liked another quarter of it, and I was bored by another quarter of it. I don't mean in runtime. I just mean if you added up the elements.
Sure.
But now that I see that it's a remake of A New Hope, I could see it again with different eyes. So, for instance, when there's a dogfight above a ultimate death weapon, my first, as I'm sitting there, I'm going, wow, this feels lazy last night. Okay. Well, whoever's hearing this at whatever time. The night when we saw it, I was thinking, wow, it's just really a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that the whole movie is following that template, I think if I looked at it again, I could see it for that.
Oh, okay. So as you were watching it, you kind of bit by bit, but when you got to the end, you're like, oh, it's actually an entire... Okay,
once I've heard the whole album, so to speak.
It makes sense. Okay.
It makes sense. Okay. While I was hearing the individual songs, I'm saying, wow, that sounds just like a thing I've already heard twice before with 2 Death Stars. Anyway.
But do you get my feeling of this is the transition? It gives you a little bit of something but it gives you new stuff you don't know, and it's preparing the audience for what's to come by giving you something
It's. I mean, you saw it when Ray and Finn are going through the Millennium Falcon, right? Like Finn is going through this box of stuff and pulls out the little laser flying ball thing, the training ball that Luke had, right? The masks that they put on are the masks that they were wearing in Empire. You have all these little nods to when they're talking about the poison gas. Those were the masks they put on. Was the ones from there
when they went to go take the what are they called, the little bats,
the bat things off,
Minox. Yeah.
But
chewing on power cables.
But that's the thing is like you have all these little nods, and she's like, this junk. No, we're not taking the piece of the junk or the garbage one, right? That's a garbage one, and it's like the Millennium Falcon. I'm like, but they get in and they're having problems with the ship, and you're like, that's the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
Going back to the earlier conversation about the old movies, for those of you growing up in the era of binge watching and home video and stuff, imagine seeing the end of Empire and then having to wait 3 years, literally 3 years, before you saw how that was resolved.
Yeah.
The end of this movie, I am very excited.
It's only 2 years.
Episode 8.
Yeah.
I would say that the thing that it did for me was
Isn't it December?
No,
Sorry. I think it's May 2018.
Oh, was it May? I thought it was December 2017. May 2017.
Earlier with that too.
Wow.
Like, what?
Well, I think I think they learned something from this, doing it in December, because didn't they always do them in December before?
No, they've always been May.
Yeah. Okay, so they were trying something out with December and realized, holy shit, how many people are going to be parking at these places? Because I mean, Valco was packed. Like
there's nothing else there.
Well, the thing is they weren't letting people up.
Right.
They had marked their tickets because there were so many people in the lobby not yet getting into the theater.
I can tell you the theater that I went to see it at this morning for the second time, for anybody who's in the Bay Area, it's the Mercado Theater. The parking lot was so packed, when we left like 12:30, that one lane of the street people had just decided we're going to turn that into a makeshift parking lot. There's just a whole row. People were just parked out of their cars.
Wow.
I've never seen that before for something like this. Like,
well, I mean, what are they at? 57.
So as of right now, as of Thursday night alone, $57 million million is the U.S. total. I believe it was $78 million since
Wednesday.
It was
72 something. That's what I was thinking
78
earlier.
Internationally.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They are estimating a U.S. $250 million opening weekend, which shatters every record.
Quick question. You were talking about time frames. With the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that kind of started like, we'll make one long movie and split it into 3 parts. Yeah. Why do you think they don't do that with these Star Wars films?
Because they're going to have the anthology stuff in between.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the idea. They don't. But I mean, can't you make it in one? Can't you make it in like one shot that saves you money and saves you time? Then you just release them when you want.
Also, different directors. J.J. Abrams isn't doing the other 2 movies. He's only doing the first one.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah,
they're going to switch up directors and a little different feel, which is fine.
Yeah.
Also, I believe wasn't this delayed until December, partly because Han Solo friggin' broke his...
Yeah, I mean you're right. Because it was supposed to come out maybe a little earlier, huh?
Yeah, I think this one was always scheduled for December.
Oh, okay.
My feeling is that when they bought the IP and started working on the movie, they were like, May 2015 might be a bit too ambitious, and we kind of don't want to wait another 5 months for 2016. So, we'll just do holiday 2015, and then for 8 and 9, we'll go back to the normal May. Who knows? But
what does that mean for the Marvel movies going forward? They always have that first Sunday, that first weekend in May.
Well, Civil War is March.
No, Civil War is May.
Civil War's May. No, it's Batman.
Batman
It's Batman v Superman's March.
Star Wars, Marvel's going to lose out to Star Wars. Anyway, Kevin.
How is Marvel going to lose out to Star Wars? They're both Disney.
But Marvel's always had that date. What's your favorite scene in the movie? You going?
I will say that a scene that made me smile hugely was actually at the beginning when the Max von Sydow scene, where he's giving, what's the pilot's name, Poe?
Yeah.
The map, and it refers to...
That's the actor.
Yeah,
right. Max
von Sydow is the actor.
His name is me and
Brock, give up your
Lor
mic.
San Tekka.
Give up your mic.
Yeah, Lor San
Tekka, I guess.
Yeah, all these Star Wars names are always wacky. Until you get until you get used to them, they're always weird.
He is a member of I forget what they call the. I'm sure Chris remembers, but he's a member of a group of people that worship the Jedi. Much in the way that
Really?
Kylo Ren, the last. Ren is the new Darth, where the Knights of Ren are a group of people that are that basically worship Vader.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
there's some stuff that have been in the books and the official prequel or the official in between books.
So Kylo is his name and Ren is his title.
Yeah.
Like
what was the book again that came out?
It's just called Aftermath.
Aftermath. Okay.
Yeah. Mixed reviews, but it's got some good info in it.
So
apparently.
I don't know any of this because,
Yeah.
like I said, I avoided everything.
Oh, everything. Okay.
Everything.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're gonna get the book?
Yeah. I'll buy the book. Yeah, I brought my Force Awakens comics to read beforehand, and I'm like, do I read them? No, I'm gonna wait till Friday.
By the way, you haven't read those?
No.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering how I kind of had a theory on the tie-in from the comics to the movie. I haven't seen the movie, but we could say.
Well, the Shattered Empire comic is about Poe Dameron's parents, right?
Yeah.
So finish it up.
Oh, yes.
Your
He
favorite
gives
scene
Poe
with
the
the
map, and Poe refers to General Organa,
Yeah.
and then Max von Sydow, the actor, I can't think of the character's name, says, "She'll always be royalty to me."
Yeah.
Great. That's a perfect callback. That, to me, is great writing and
Yeah.
just a great callback. The other part is when Solo offers, what's her name, Rey?
Yeah.
I always remember the actor names, not the character. Daisy Ridley offers her the job on the Falcon.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking as I was watching it, who started swearing earlier on the podcast?
Adam says Adam.
Han, Chewie, and Rey flying around the galaxy having adventures. I would watch the shit out of that movie. Like, I wanted them to just get in the ship and fly out of this movie onto that story. So those are my two favorite parts. Rating.
Yeah.
Go with the BB-8 one.
4, 5, 6, and 7 tied.
Okay. Toby.
Hey.
Sorry, we're gonna jump Toby in here.
Yeah, hi.
What's happening?
It's going.
What do you think of this movie?
I liked it quite a bit, like everybody else here. Wait, did anybody didn't like it? No?
Now, you saw it at the Alamo Draft House.
Yes.
Was Justin Hayward there?
The what?
Was Justin Hayward there?
I didn't see
Nobody
him, but I
knows
saw
who that
Max and
is.
Brian, though.
Everybody knows who that is.
The Geek Box and GameSpot's Justin Haywald was there, as well as IGN and Comedy Button's Max Scoville and Brian Altano.
Yeah, so I was looking out for Justin, but I saw Max and Brian, and I waved at them, and they
More importantly, what do you think of the movie?
Well, I really, really liked it. Like everything that's already been said, right? It's basically a remake of the original movie. It's like a remix, greatest hits album, whatever you want to call it. I like how it kind of makes match some of the characters. I completely fell in love with Rey. I mean, I absolutely love her. I mean, she's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of Han in her. There's a little bit of young Skywalker in her. I really like that. Finn, I kind of like the take on, finally a stormtrooper is like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this, So I really,
real quick, I don't want to jump in. One of my favorite parts is the acknowledgement of both the stormtroopers and the clone army, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we should just use clones instead." Like, that's okay. The idea of the clone army was fine. The actual clone army we got kind of sucked, but the idea of the clone army is fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, I like Finn a lot. The one that really, really surprised me is Poe, because I was like, first line, both Finn and Poe. I actually didn't care for the first 2 minutes. And the minute they got together into a TIE fighter, they became friends and they introduced each other. I was like, I love these guys now.
Is it the "you need a pilot, I need a pilot" line? That to me was just like instant.
To me, it was actually the name thing. When he was like, "My name is Tutu something," and he goes, "I'll call you Finn." Oh, nice to meet you. I'm like, they're friends, and now I care, right? Which is what I desperately think was missing in 1, 2, 3. I mean, like even Obi-Wan, I didn't care for him. Like none of the characters in 1, 2, 3, I did not care for at all. Not one of them, right? And this one, in an instant, they turned two characters I was watching this movie, and I didn't really care for in one line or one dialogue scene. I was like, I instantly loved these two guys, right? The lines between Rey and Finn were amazing. The whole back and forth and her holding her own and Finn having the, the wanting to help people, right? I mean, the minute he was knocked out, and the first line he is like, "Are you okay?" And Ray kind of looks at him and go, "What the fuck is wrong with you? You're the one that's knocked out, not me," right? So I really like that line. So the BB-8 kind of being the younger brother of R2-D2, I love that part. I thought it was really well done. I really thought, it was actually, I think, Ryan Scott that said the same line. I really thought we were going to see Luke a lot sooner, and he's going to bust out one lightsaber, and then he's going to bust out the red one in the other side. But as the movie kept progressing, I'm like, this shit is not happening.
Yeah.
And then as it kind of kept progressing, I was like, I really do not want Luke to come and save the day because it'll take away from these new characters so much. I really don't want to see that. So
he is the new Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It is,
really.
absolutely, yeah. So the fact that they did it, and before the giant finale, I was like, motherfuckers, he's going to be the cliffhanger. I was so pissed off at that point. But I mean, look, it's really well done. I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, yeah, just a fantastic movie. I really like. I want to say,
is the meeting of them your favorite scene?
The what?
Poe and Finn. Is that your favorite scene?
I think that one, and then a lot of Rey and Finn stuff, and BB-8 obviously, and but Poe, surprised me because I didn't think I was gonna like him. And I want to say one thing though, it is really good to be JJ's friend. He gave so many. He pulled the Kevin Smith. So many of the Lost guys, so many of his alias people started showing up in this, and just small parts. Carrie Fisher's daughter is like literally almost in like every Carrie Fisher scene, like right by her. Like if you just look kind of slight to the right, you kind of see her daughter. I thought that was nice, like nicely done, and she had like one line in the movie. The 3CPO is really well done too, and no complaints. They played it really safely. They hit all the beats. They remade kind of the movie that everybody that wanted to see, and I think that was done, on purposely so that they bought the IP. They're not going to piss off all the Star Wars people with the first go. So with this, they safely kind of like, hey, look, we do know what you guys want to see. Yeah. Now that you're in, we're going to tell some stories.
That's exactly what I think.
Yeah. Yep. So I think this is like, the Marvel origin movies, like, the first Captain America, the first Thor movies where, you kind of do the origin stuff, and then you get the Winter Soldier movie and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be in some amazing ride stuff here.
Yeah. Adam.
As far as scenes, visually, the stuff on Jakku, and I said this on after the movie, I said, why is every planet in the Star Wars galaxy either barren wasteland or full of ice?
Well, look, outside of Los Angeles, there's only there's the rocks where they shot Kirk versus the Gorn, right? And then you have the desert, and then you have the ocean. That's all there is. You can't shoot anywhere else.
Now, to be fair, though, I love the fact that they went back to the desert and those kind of scenes because in 1, 2, 3, they were so all over the board. I'm like, I don't believe it.
No, I was
no CG'd. Location shots in this.
Would you have been upset though if they would have gone to Tatooine or Hoth and using those planets?
Not in this movie. Maybe later on, fine. But
it just seems Jakku is very similar to Tatooine.
It is.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure, yeah. It even has a lot of the same.
There were Jawas there.
Species,
There were.
Yeah, there was a couple Jawas walking around. And
I didn't think they were Javas. I thought they looked.
That was the whole thing with them going into the town, or not in the town, the bar.
Yeah,
right. You saw a lot of familiar faces in that bar.
There was the Mos Eisley, Mos Eisley scene.
I'm just saying evolution doesn't necessarily work like that.
There's spaceships. They can go wherever they want.
I guess so.
I really, really do like the new Yoda. The what's her name?
Stoke.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Supreme Intelligence.
Maz Kanata?
Yeah, I love.
She was cool.
Oh man, I really hope she's not dead. I really hope she comes back.
No, she's not dead. I
like the glasses thing too. With the other.
Since Bryce isn't here, I'll have to steal a line that he said last night. He said her bar is like 1,000 years old, and she's got a statue of herself in front of it. Like, you know what I mean?
I'd have a statue of myself in front of my bar, man.
I guess if it's been around for 1,000 years.
If in 975 years Comics Conspiracy is still here, there'll be a statue of me outside. Okay.
Well, and it's a castle. It's not just a bar.
I guess so.
You know.
Okay, but it's a bit self-indulgent, is all I'm saying. Anyway, but my favorite...
We are now officially clocking longer than the movie, so what's your thought on this?
Hold on.
The reason I brought it up is because so the visually, like seeing Rey riding her bike past these giant spaceships.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean,
That was the background of my computer for a long time.
Super Star Destroyer?
Yeah, the Super Star Destroyer. Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
they're probably just regular
They're
ones.
regular-
'cause they're
they're
only,
regular Star
There
Destroyers.
are only 4.
it just shows you like
Nerd.
how big this shit is.
It's just amazing cinematography. And even it's of a not not anything real, but just that comes into somebody's head.
Yeah.
But as far as my favorite scene in the movie, it was probably when no, it was not probably. This is the best scene in the movie, and I can't believe it, and nobody's mentioned it yet. It's when Finn is talking to Han about how they're gonna blow up the nuclear or the Death Star.
It's the reactor thing, yeah.
And he's all, well, we'll just use the Force. He's all, that's not how the Force works. And
That
just
was
the way
brilliant.
the way he said it, and the funny thing is, the audience knew it, and they started cracking up. And the fact that it was Han that even Han knows that that's not how the Force works.
Well, I think Han was in on a lot of the jokes, right? When they did the whole Death Star, Death Planet thing, he goes, "Oh, it's just bigger.
Yeah.
There has to be a way to blow it up."
Yeah.
So it's almost like they were in on the joke at this point, which made it all so much funnier.
Yeah.
But that was a great joke, though. I thought it was hilarious because again, they don't know this. Like Finn and Rey, it's established that they don't really know about this Force
Right.
stuff. So, yeah, sure. We just found out about this Force. Let's use it to blow up something.
Give me some rating here.
Yeah. Oh,
What do you think of this movie?
I prefer Roger Ebert's scale of just do I recommend
thumbs
it
up,
or do I not recommend it? I absolutely recommend this movie.
That works.
Thumbs up. Yeah, well, the one thing I thought was interesting too about the movie is like because people have been touching on this all during the podcast is that there's a famous line by Thomas Wolfe that says you can never go home again, but when you watch Episode 7, like you can go home again.
Yeah.
You can go home again,
yeah.
and you can really enjoy this movie.
Well, I think for me, and going back talking about the cinematography and the effects and all that stuff is Abrams going back to the practical effects to actual
everything.
World of difference.
Absolutely.
You go and watch the original movies. You can respect them for the times and what they did. And
Oh, it's holding up big time.
and it holds
I
up.
think it's-
But you go and you watch 1, 2, and 3, and these are CG
they
to the
aged.
fullest, and they look horrid.
Yeah, they blow up so much on screen. I've always maintained this point. Is like it overshadows the actors because film is essentially actors and story. And if you have a bunch of special effects, eye candy as I call it, and that's all you do, it takes way away. It takes totally away from your story and the actors.
I had mentioned before that I had found some edited versions of episodes 1, 2, and 3 online, and just watching the clone trooper battle at the end of episode 2. I mean, at the time watching it was like, this is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Looking at it now, it's like this CG is so dated. Like it's so obvious that it's CG, and it's just terrible. And the fact that they didn't use a single live person as a clone trooper in 2 and 3 is just smacks of like, I don't know, Lucas thinking he can do whatever the hell he wants because he's Lucas.
Wait, they had no CG? How did they have the Nuremberg rally then?
No, there was CG in this.
No. The thing is the CG. Like a big problem that I've always had with the CG from the originals to the first 3 is that the first 3 look clean. Like they look very pristine.
Well, they're too clean.
They're too clean. And the thing is in this, the CG looks natural. It looks like these are like when you're someone was saying like.
What's her
is flying around shooting
part of
down.
that's also technology.
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
technology.
Things have changed.
What's her name? The Yoda. What'd you call? What's her name? Maz. Like I was actually like, is she fully CG, or was there someone there and they're like CGing over her because she looked perfect.
Yeah,
that was a mocap performance.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where and part of this goes back to them remastering and retouching up the original 3 is one of the biggest complaints I had was they made the X-Wing fighters darker gray. Like they weren't that bleached gray color. Like they'd been like used. Like these were old things that they kind of threw together as a the Rebel fleet. When they made them darker and more gray and more grit, like this, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But in this, they had that great combination. And it came out in Poe's.
Well, they were real.
X-wing fighter.
The X-wings were real. I mean,
the
they
thing
were
his
props.
X-wing fighter was black with an orange on it, but it looked like it had been in space, exposed to sun, exposed to like elements
also the
and stuff
fact
like
that they're old, that they're taking
yeah,
parts from
they're
everything,
old,
building
exactly.
these ships. And
And that's the thing is like you get this. 7 gave you such a scope of how to like kind of grit it up a bit or make it look like it's older and give us something that feels a lot more natural, especially when they're sitting there walking into the bar and they're walking by that obviously CG robot that's walking by them. It doesn't look so bad.
No, because it was very minimally used.
Yeah, very minimally used. And BB-8, I know they had like 9 BB-8s different types of BB-8s that they were using during the film.
Yeah.
And it was just, I think that Abrams did an amazing job with
Yeah,
that.
special effects like a good musical score enhances the movie, but it should never overshadow the movie.
Yeah.
In episodes 1, 2, and 3, they totally overshadow the movie.
Yeah, well, they were the movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about Lucas. He seems to have this. Even when he did his remake of Star Wars and put all that eye candy in there, it's just like I don't know why he seems to appreciate that so much.
I have a JJ question though. That shot that you pointed out, Adam, is when Rey is driving by the destroyer. Mm-hmm. Is that shot in every JJ movie? No, because they did it in Star Trek.
Star Trek has it,
and it's the logo, the Bad Robot logo going by. Is this his signature shot?
It must be.
Is it?
Well, he loves Star Wars, and that's something that we got from Star Wars was kind of the scope shot of large things comparing to small things. Because before the movie came out, there's a ton of videos out there now that are comparing the different size ships in Star Wars, and then the different size ships in different video games and all that stuff. And it's really interesting to watch just the kind of the scope of these science fiction vehicles.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. The shot when someone drives across the screen. Is that in every JJ movie, though?
I think so. It seems like
it's a signature shot. That's kind of like his signing off, I'm JJ.
Right. Well, he does that with that Bad Robot thing.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. I know for a fact it's in Star Trek, and I don't know if it's an Alias or if it's...
It is, that's where I first saw it was Alias.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of nice.
So are we all agreed, though, that Abrams' Star Wars is better than Abrams' Star Trek?
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I'm like I said, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but this is a much better movie. It just is. It was amazing.
For me, it's enjoyable as well. I like this more than the Star Trek movie.
When Abrams did, I liked Abrams' Star Trek reboot, but he admitted he's like, I'm not a Star Trek fan.
Yeah, and honestly, you can tell. Being a huge Star Trek fan, you can tell he's not.
So gun to my head, I'm probably a bigger Star Trek fan than I am Star Wars.
I am definitely a bigger Star Trek fan.
I'll
say Star Wars is better.
I love the first Abrams Star Wars movie. Or Star Trek movie.
I actually did not like the second one that much.
No, I don't think a lot of
much.
people did.
Yeah,
but I loved the first one.
They're both really good in different ways.
If you had to choose one or the other.
I have to watch this one more. I've seen Star Trek a bunch. I need to watch this one more to really make a decision. But probably this one. But let me give my quick wrap up here because we're going to wrap up here. Let me give my wrap up and then we can wrap up. We have infinite amount of time to talk about Star Wars. This podcast is almost
because we're
over.
all going to watch it again.
Yeah, we'll have lots more to say.
Is Snoke's really that big?
No, he's tiny. He's like Yoda size.
You think he's Yoda size?
Smurf. Come on.
He's probably Yoda size.
It's the same guy that played Gollum.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, what's your guys' theory on who he is? Is he the master that Palpatine killed? Because didn't he have reviving powers? Did he bring himself back to life?
Is he Palpatine?
No, the one that Palpatine killed to take over. Yeah. Yes.
Who? If it didn't happen in a movie, I don't know it.
Well, this is episode 3 when he's like trying to seduce Anakin. He's like, there was a Sith. His name was Darth Plagueis, and he could
you mentioned
bring people
him
back to life. Yeah, and he kind of insinuates that he was Plagueis's apprentice, and he killed Plagueis.
Maybe he could.
Secrets.
Sure,
I think that's a stretch, Toby.
Okay.
I actually thought I thought he was just a giant person.
Yeah.
The hologram flickered, and I was like, oh, a little sad that it wasn't a giant.
Well, that freaked me out.
That was a little weird at first.
It freaked me out.
That's JJ rubbing at Ridley going, hey, this is how you do a real engineer.
It was Yoda's first Padawan who went to the dark side.
So Chris,
it could be. You never know.
So Chris, what exactly did you say? Because I want to quote you exactly. You said when Poe was doing a perfect slalom of attacks during the battle at the castle.
Yeah, a
I loved
slalom of attack. Yeah.
Okay, So my favorite scene is when Finn is running on the ground, blasting stormtroopers, and in the background is Poe and the X-Wing doing the slalom of attacks. That, to me, there's a scene in Avengers where all the Avengers, one by one, are jumping, and they're all doing their attack, and they're all attacking the big serpent thing in the sky. They start on the ground, and they get in the bigger, they get more powerful. To me, that's just like one of those flawless shots in film where it's like, this is what it's all about. It's not about the circle, the shot where they're all in the circle. It's about the shot of all them kind of their powers, just the way they go about it. It's so flawless. That was my shot in Star Wars, and this one
that was the perfect marriage. That was the perfect marriage of practical and CG.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's giving us what Star Wars is the future that.
But it's effects, but it's also the physical thing.
Well, and that's the beauty of this movie because you can see it multiple times and you'll catch something new that you may have missed the first time out.
My
or second
eyes
time out.
were going back and forth between the foreground and the background. The foreground and background, just being like, "Oh my god, I need to like watch this on 2 TVs, like split in half to see what's going on."
Did you guys watch it in 3D or 2D?
Nah, just 2D.
I have to say, I was really impressed with the 3D.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
I was really impressed. Yeah.
I'll probably check it out in 3D at some point.
But are you going to watch it in your 2D glasses, though?
Maybe. If I had to rank this, I'd say, man, Empire's tough to beat. Jedi's probably always going to be my second favorite, but this is right there. I love this movie. I absolutely loved, and this. I want this to be my final thought on this movie because, as podcasts are posted on the internet, I read a lot of people's comments today about this movie. There is so much nitpicking about tiny little details in this movie.
I have a nitpick.
Why can't this be better? Well, what if this was a little bit better? This is a little bit of a nitpick. This is a little bit of a nitpick.
The Ewoks are not in the movie.
For over 15 years now, we have been dealing with the shit from the original, from the prequel trilogy. You could take your nitpicks and go fuck yourself with them, okay?
Hey-o.
This is a fantastic Star Wars movie.
Ryan.
They're back.
Ryan.
I am so excited for the next 20 years of Star Wars.
Ryan.
Yes.
Welcome to the internet.
I know.
Well, this is.
I don't care. No, and I'm not picking on Charlie or anyone else here or Lane.
Well, keep in mind, sorry to interrupt, but keep in mind that all the things that we're talking about here, I don't think we think of them as nitpicks. We just think of like, here's some issues that we did because we all love this movie. So nitpickers are like, well, I think what you're saying is like they dislike the movie because of something specifically. I don't think anybody here dislikes this movie because some of the comments that we made.
As always, the internet is the real wretched hive of scum and villainy.
It absolutely is.
And man,
well, speaking of, I'm so glad I saw the movie on opening night because
everything's spoiled everywhere.
Everything,
of course.
I mean, is there like hashtag rip Han Solo on Twitter yet?
There's
the Google. So the Google search, the Google auto fill in search for Han Solo was Han Solo dies. For Kylo Ren, it's Kylo Ren kills Han Solo.
Oh, no.
Those are the Google auto fills right now. It's
the thing
insane.
is, didn't Google on their Chrome say you could block any Star Wars searches?
There's like an app or something. Yeah.
I'm just thinking for the next movie.
Google.
For the next movie, we're gonna have to do the same thing. Just like a week without internet. At the very least.
Yeah. So
Ryan was actually productive this past week.
Yeah, it was. It did all sorts of work. Yeah. So again,
that's Ryan Higgins.
I'm not going to go on for too long. You guys said everything that needs to be said, but man, like Brock said, this is the closest I've felt to a little kid in a long time. I love the comic book movies, and they have been so good, but this. Star Wars predates comic books for me, and I lost this love for so long. Comic books have always been there for me. I never let go of them. I let go of Star Wars. It's really good to have it back.
Well, it's going back to comics. I mean, comics have had their eras where the fans are now old enough to work on these things, and
same with Star Wars.
And the same with Star Wars is that we've had it for a while, but this is the first time in a long time that Star Wars has had this and this revitalization.
Yeah.
Plus, the ending is such, and this is the first time I really had this feeling watching the ending in this movie, where it's like, you know what? There's a part of me that I wish I would have not seen this movie and waited till the next one came out, so then I could watch this movie and watch.
Now it's just like Kevin was saying. It's episode 5 all over again.
And I haven't had that feeling since that time.
Well, it's the mid-season finale of Walking Dead. No, I have to wait for it to come back.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being on this podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hopefully, you also enjoyed Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This is your comic conspiracy episode for Christmas week. We're not going to have a regular episode, so hopefully you enjoyed this. We'll be back next week with a more regular episode, of course. Always listen to the Geek Box, which these lovely folks will be on later next week to talk more about Star Wars if you didn't get enough on this 2.5 hour long Star Wars podcast. So
only
thank
2.5 hours?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, we could have gone
Why are
longer,
you cutting
but
us short?
yeah, but I gotta go pack because I'm going to Disneyland. We're going to see more Star Wars stuff.
I'm going to Star Wars.
So I'm on my way. Thank you everyone, and may the Force be with you.